You should hopefully get a notification about that. Okay, great. So we've just, in case you didn't hear, we just asked everyone if you could please put your school name beside your name so that we know who you are and what school you're with. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. Jeff's gonna lead us right at the beginning here. Jeff?
Hey, good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone's smiling faces. Happy new school year. I hope things are going well at your school. Before we begin, a couple of things. One, apologies if you just joined us. We're on our board account, and the settings are so that you can only message the hosts. So if you have anything you want to put in the chat that you want someone to lift up, just message one of us and say, can you please say this out loud or lift this up? That's fine too. But before we officially begin today, as I'm sure you all heard about the shooting at Washington last week, and we wanted to hold space and acknowledge that and hold space for the student who was shot, Benny Hargrove, and acknowledge that the pain and the loss that's felt by the family and the students and staff at Washington must be immense and unimaginable. And so we wanted to take a moment of silence to begin today in honor of Benny's family, and the whole Washington family. So please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you all. And as a reminder, Lindsay did send some links out for supports if you're able to contribute or you need any supports. And if anyone else has any links to any, I don't know, GoFundMe's or any other resources or supports, please feel free to email them out, or you can put them in the chat, and one of the hosts will put that out to everyone else. I don't know if Paula's here, but I know that we all hold her and her staff in our hearts, and you know, I'm sure that each and every one of us are open if she or any of those their staff need anything. So thank you all so much. We also want to start today with a little bit of an icebreaker, knowing that the past 1.5 years have been difficult, and then of course this is one of the most heart-wrenching ways to start a new school year. I think it's still important every once in a while to stop and remember why we do this work and what inspires us and drives us to serve our students and families. It's also important, I think, to recognize the inspiration. You know, obviously we can find inspiration in those big moments, those big wins, when a program does something amazing, or a student or family is helped and connected to the right resource and it changes their life. But I also think it's important to find inspiration in the small everyday moments. So with that in mind, I want everyone to maybe take a second, look around the space you're currently in, if you're in your house or your office at school, and take a moment to find something meaningful to you. It can have a deep meaning, or it can be meaningful in a smaller way. We'll ask a few people to share out loud, have everyone show us their objects, and have a few people share out loud what makes it meaningful. And then we'll also have an opportunity for people to type up some stuff. So take a moment, everyone look around, see if they find something around in their space that they find meaningful and or inspirational. I'll give everyone a couple minutes to do that. So if everyone, I know we can't see everyone all at once. Actually, Deanna, maybe could you stop sharing the screen for just one moment? just because there's a ton of us, I won't have time for everyone to speak, but I'd love to see everyone's inspirational objects. If you have it, just hold it up to the camera. Awesome. Does anyone want to share why they picked what they picked?
I like to share. I got 63 school uniform, or not uniform, but shoe vouchers in yesterday evening, and I am going to be passing them out shortly. 63 of them.
Very cool. Congratulations. Who else?
Jeff, is there a way that we raise our hand? I'm so familiar with Google Meets, so I don't see like that.
That's
And
fair.
I just don't know.
You can, down at the bottom, there should be an option to.
It's in reactions. So you have a little smiley face. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, thank you for pointing that out because I think we're just all set on Google now.
That's super fair. Thank you for the reminder, Erica.
Yeah,
Well,
I have an acorn.
Absolutely. Tell us about the
I found
acorn.
an acorn. It's a fresh acorn. We have acorn trees here at La Mesa. And I was walking by yesterday and I picked it up. It's green still. It's really cool. And it just like was a huge inspirational moment because I'm like on this path of like enlightenment. So like I just was like, I picked it up and I was like, this just reminds me of all the growth that's going to happen at this school. And even though it's a tiny little thing, it's still a seed, but I just thought it was cool.
Very cool. Thank you, Erica. I see Anna has her hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Anna from Valle Vista. Thank you so much. That is such a beautiful icebreaker. So I have a little flower that says, and it's going to make me cry because I'm a crier. Mom, your love is the most beautiful flower of all. That was from my teenager. So I have to share that because it's so sweet.
Very sweet. Thank you, Anna. Jess. Oh yeah, also, yeah, there's tons of new people here today. So thank you, Anna, for reminding us. Please introduce yourself with your name and your school.
I'm Jess Selby. I'm the community school coordinator at West Mesa High School. And I looked around my office and there's so many things. I had a hard time choosing just one, but ultimately I chose a picture of my 3 of my kiddos, which, you know, for obvious reason, but honestly, it's more than just for them. It just reminds me that everything I do is really for those that come behind me. So for our future generations, so not just my own children, but all the kids I get to work with and all the people, you know, all the future kids, you know, years from now, that I can possibly make an impact on. So yeah, so for my kids and all the rest that are still to come.
Thank you, Jess. And Stephanie.
So mine's gonna be a little sad, I guess, but mine is Benny's yearbook picture. Before he was at Washington, he was here at McKinley last year. He was a comet. And his smile is so infectious. And so hearing the stories about how he would make his friends laugh and Miss Katie laugh and smile, his bravery is what's getting me through this school year and starting up our community school here at McKinley. I remember when I get scared or freaked out, you know, meeting a new community partner, I'll look at his picture and I'm like, I'm going to be brave like him. So he's my inspiration.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stephanie.
I'll go ahead and go. Hi, everybody. For those I haven't met, I definitely see some new faces. I am Jessica Dinsmart. I am the community school coordinator at Manzano High School. I too had multiple things in my office that just kind of represent my why. One of them is we have a partnership with Wise Minds. And so that is through the UNM Department of the School of Psychology. So they have the psychologists. So they do a program here where we teach mindfulness and we do really cool activities with our kids. And one of them was we took a Polaroid picture of ourselves and we went around and wrote things that we liked about each other and appreciated. And the kids had just really nice things to say about my role and my position here at Manzano. And I look at this every day when I'm having a hard day or I'm working on something that maybe isn't going well, and remind myself that what we do is so important. And I know it's hard, but we do touch the lives of so many people, whether it's directly or indirectly. And this is just one of those reminders of how powerful our positions are.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jess. All right, for time's sake, won't be able to have everyone share, but I want you to hold whatever you have in your hand. And I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to, whatever inspires you about this object, I want you to let that feeling flow from your hand. Let it travel down your arm. And let that feeling flow through your entire body. Take a deep breath in through your nose. As you breathe in, let that feeling grow more intense throughout you. Breathe out. Just let that feeling drive you for the rest of the day. And throughout the rest of the year, you can always remind yourself of that object, touch that object for that feeling, let it drive you. So thank you all so much. Looking forward to working with you this year, and I'll pass it on.
Well, that was wonderful. Thank you all so much. And I know you all have your inspirational objects. We definitely would love to, if you're interested in sharing, and you can put it in the chat, and we we would love to hear about your inspirations. So we're going to talk just a little briefly, quickly about who we are as ABC. Some of you know all of us. Some of you know some of us. Some of us know all of you, and some of us know some of you. So we're going to try to make it so all of us know all of us. So Danette, we're going to go ahead and start with Danette. She is the executive director.
All right, thank you. I was telling you all that if you want to put your stuff in the chat, just send it directly to me and I will post it for everyone. Welcome everybody. So nice to see so many new faces. I'm Danette Townsend. I'm the executive director of the ABC Community School Partnership. I have been with ABC since its inception in 2007 as a board member, and then also as staff, and now as the director. And what I'm super excited about this year is we have so many community schools. We are at 51 traditional schools and 2 charter schools working with the ABC network. And what my role with ABC outside of, being the director is really looking at the systems level work that we do through policy and practice and working with our board. My role is to really listen to what's coming out of the community school councils and the coordinators, and lifting that up to decision makers at the district, community, and state and federal level. And I work really, our team is very much full of content experts in various ways. I do, however, have a lot of experience starting in 2007 as the community school coordinator at Grant Middle School, and working with a very large initiative then, and then moving forward to doing all of the work in between to where I am now. My background, just because there are so many new people, I am a therapist by education and trade. I spent many, many years working with teenagers through the YMCA, doing therapeutic intervention and youth development back then, and overseeing things like childcare and summer camps and all of those pieces as well. So, and with the initiative experience I had as a coordinator, I also had an incredible opportunity to learn about what we call the pillars now. So I have a pretty well-versed set of knowledge around school-based health centers and family supports and all the things that we do now. I was really blessed with my introduction to community schools being in a space like that. I also work with our team to develop tools and processes that will lead us to policy change. Our goal is to, yes, develop community schools, but for the purpose of changing the way we deliver education in this state and in this country. And knowing that what we do, the way we do it is, we believe, I believe, our team believes, is the answer to how we make education equitable and just for every student in our state. So I appreciate every one of you being here. I'm so excited to see how, I mean, we've gone from 26 schools 3 years ago to 52 schools now, 53 schools now. So we are making it happen, but we're making it happen because you all are there to do the work on the ground. Thank you.
Awesome. Lindsay Wilwall, will you go next?
Yes, I will. Wasn't sure if I was going next or last, but good morning, everybody. My name is Lindsay Wilwall. I think I've met everyone, so lucky me. I am the community school manager for Albuquerque Public Schools. I work in the Student, Family, and Community Supports Division, but I feel very fortunate to be an unofficial member of the ABC team. I work in my capacity really closely with the team as well. My role is to support community schools and community school personnel. I work really closely with schools that receive the New Mexico Public Education Department Community School Planning or Implementation Grant, as those of you who are recipients know. At the district level, I help to support the internal system level processes and structures that support community school work. Currently, I'm chairing the APS Community School Steering Committee. I try and provide learning opportunities for other district departments in the community school strategy so we can try and align all the work happening in the district more effectively and just try and practice collaborative leadership at the systems level. One of my goals this year is to engage school staff in this system level work more intentionally. Our systems are in place, particularly here at APS, to support schools so you all can effectively support students, families, and strengthen communities. So please connect with me. I'll try and formalize or operationalize that a little better, but you're always welcome to come by City Center. I know no one ever wants to, but you can. Or call me, email me, you don't have to have a good reason. I'd love to hear from you. So weird how nervous I get introducing myself. Okay. My background is for many years, I was a classroom teacher. So I'm really excited about connecting the implementation of the community school strategy to teaching and learning in order to transform education. So I'm happy to be here and happy I'm done with my introduction.
Can you pass it off to another team member?
Yeah, go ahead, Deanna.
Oh, gee, thank you. Okay. So hi, everybody. I'm Deanna Creighton Cook. I work for ABC Community School Partnership. Obviously, before that, I've been here for 5 years in this position. Before that, I was a community school coordinator for 5 years. I was one of the first with the Kellogg grant coordinators. At that time, we had 4 Kellogg sponsored community schools and maybe a couple of other random schools floating around. So yeah, the growth for me is mind-boggling and very exciting. And I really love supporting community school coordinators. I'm a nerd, just so you know. I love learning. And so I'm currently in law school doing a master's of studies in law. I just finished taking education law this summer. It was just fascinating. And and I really try to parlay everything I learn and all the research that's out there and best practices about community schools into creating trainings and support and tools for all of us, so that we can, have the most outstanding community schools, not just in APS and not just in New Mexico, but in the whole United States. And, we really are on that national map, thanks to your really diligent work. So I'm just excited for this new year and what it brings. And my role at the moment is mostly supporting the brand new community school coordinators, which is also really fun for me. So, and nice to see all my coordinators from last year doing well and thriving. I'm going to pass it off to Jake.
Hey everybody, Jake Maribal. I guess my role in ABC is to support the support coordinators. I'm here for you guys. I was also a coordinator at Highland High School for a few years. My background is beyond coordination as well. I am pretty intrinsically involved with Bernalillo County as a system. And so I help our team in lots of different ways to how we engage the county and just in systems in general. But I would say that really I'm just excited for the new year with y'all, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. I know you're going to hear that a lot, but we're here and we want to see you guys succeed. So happy to see y'all, and I'm going to pass it on to Jeff.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Anderson. I was also with the ABC team. My background is in the arts, specifically theater, and as well as out of school time work. I used to work at Children's Choice with Rochelle, and as well as resource development and financial management. So I really come at this work from a partnership, partner, like non-school-based partner perspective. And so with that, with that experience, one of my roles is helping to develop partnerships, helping to build partner skills and working with community schools, since it's a different way of working with schools than they might be used to at a traditional school, and doing trainings and stuff like, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but like through programs like the Big Table, to bring partners together and share thoughts and expertise and make connections for collaborations. So my role in ABC is, that partnership development, as well as working to find arts partners and arts programming to bring to schools, supporting out of school time programming. And this year also working with an equity and social justice lens and helping to lead the ABC Equity and Social Justice subcommittee, and then trying to look at our work from that lens, as well as working on developing some qualitative and relational based community assessment work, which we'll also talk about in a little bit as well. So welcome, hello to everyone that I know and have worked with for the past few years, and welcome to all the folks who are just joining the community school family. I'll pass it on to Daniel.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. My name is Daniel Manzano, here with the ABC Community School Partnership. I've only been here, I've been here about 1.5 years now, learning a lot about what's going on with the ABC team, what's going on with the community school councils, all the coordinators. I have a chance to meet many of you. Looking forward to meeting a lot of the new coordinators. Before I kind of talk about a little what I did, I think it's important why I'm here. And, this week has been a heavy week, a lot of shootings, a lot of violence, and it reminds me of how much our communities are hurting and how valuable this work is, and how valuable it is how important it is to change education, to really uplift and support communities, to really heal and to get quality education and increase opportunities and remove barriers and all these things. And so, you guys really inspire me. This work is amazing. Prior to this, I worked with elected officials pretty much my entire adult career. I was the chief of staff for our county assessor here. I was there for 6 years. I was wanting to go into become a clinical counselor. So I was doing my master's program around becoming a clinical counselor. And at that time, the new administration came in, and I was asked to be the chief of staff for the public education department. And so I was up there at the PED. I got to be the chief of staff for the lieutenant governor, who was the interim secretary at the time, and then had the wonderful opportunity to be the chief of staff for Secretary Dr. Karen Trujillo. And that's who I was. My thing was, I have a picture of her. Unfortunately, she was struck by a car and killed earlier this year. And but she taught me how to make the most impact with every minute that you have. to do good for your community. And so she inspires me to this day. But while I was at PED, I had the wonderful opportunity to do a tour of a community school at Highland High School, and getting to meet Marco and Jake and the ABC team, and really seeing the amazing work that community schools do. I was like instantly inspired. And after that tour, after that day, I said to myself, I was like, I'm going to work for community schools some way, somehow in the future, because it aligns to a lot of the values that I believe in. And like talking about, I was being a counselor, you get to do a lot of healing and connections and with the individuals and with the communities. And so I wanted to get here, and fortunately enough, I made it here to ABC, and I've been here a year and a half. And what I focus on here with the ABC Community School Partnership is really policy and communication. So on the policy side, I bring my policy experience with me. I'm the chair of the statewide coalition policy subgroup. Right now we're working really on sustainability. How do we make sure that community school coordinators, that the funding is there long-term, so that administrators don't have to feel pressure about making sure they have a community school coordinator. We've seen tremendous exponential growth around the state, here in Albuquerque as well, about the community school model. It works, it's supportive. We have the populations that need it, that need you guys, and I only see community schools continuing to expand. And so we got to make sure that expansion is sustainable and supported for the long term. So that's really where I focus on the policy side. On the communication side, it was nice. I came in, ABC's done a strategic plan. Around that strategic plan, we're finalizing a communication plan. I also help lead the communication strategic action planning with our board and our intermediary leadership team. And what's coming out of that is some cool stuff that I'm wanting to share with you in a little more detail later, but really communication, clear communication about what we do, telling our story, making sure people know all the things that we do, celebrating that. We're putting together a website. We're putting out newsletters, and just making sure there's good transparency. Last year, I got the wonderful opportunity to learn a lot from coordinators through the cohort models. They taught me probably more than I helped them, but that's part of it, the learning opportunities and getting to know what councils do, what coordinators do, what different communities do. It was very enriching. And so I look forward to working and learning from you all this upcoming year. And I'll pass it over to Raisha.
So I don't think Raisha's here today, actually, with us. So let's move to, we have Gloria and Alex left. And if you can just briefly introduce yourselves, Gloria, and then Alex. Gloria, you're muted still.
And I had the button to click. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gloria Schneller. As Jose would say, don't let the last name fool you. I'm actually Flores. I have been working with ABC for 7 years. I started at a community center. I am currently the administrative assistant. I started part-time, now I'm full-time, and I support the team as a whole, Danette primarily, and then anything that the team needs. I started as an admin just in January, and some of you know that I do opportunity fund, I do billing, so I am now learning about the Bernalillo County and the systems within, and so my focus is just to work with each of the team members so that they can do what they do to help all of you. Alex, you're up.
Hi, I'm Alex Shoemaker, and I'm the intern here at ABC. I'm a Master of Public Policy candidate through the University of New Mexico, and that's why I'm here. I'm getting real world policy experience, and I feel like this is one heck of a place to do it. I kind of have a background in political political science and law, and so I'm very interested in breaking down barriers to equity and justice, really. And it never really occurred to me before I came here that education is a great place to be doing that. So I'm really happy to be here and helping ABC with all the little odd jobs that I get to do.
Okay, Danette, do you want to let us know really quickly what Raisha does? And then we'll turn it over to Daniel for some exciting updates.
Absolutely. So Raisha Saud is also on our team. She is she's off this week, but Raisha does a variety of different things with us. She helps with contracting. She has a public health background. So she also does a lot of the data and evaluation setup work that we're going to be talking about in a little while. She oversees the out of school time funding process through the money from the city of Albuquerque. So she does a little of everything right now. But she is the primary contact on the out of school time money. And then also, for those of you who worked with her on the code book and the population health students project last year, she's going to continue to do some of that work as well.
So we're not going to go through these things. I will be downloading and sending you this presentation as a PDF. So you'll have this information. This is a little map of how ABC works. And so we're going to skip those for right now. And Daniel, I'm going to turn it over. Yeah.
Before you go on to that, can I just say one thing about those two slides as they're reading them?
Yeah.
More so than one before. Because there's so many new people this year, the ABC team has been going through a strategic planning process for about 1.5 years. And this what we do, the buckets of work that the ABC team and the board is focused on and the team is executing comes from that planning process. Just so everyone knows, and those of you who've been around a while, if you weren't aware of this, this is not really a big shift, but it is a more specific shift to these buckets of work for us. That's the expectation our team has to execute the work that the board has decided on. Thanks, Deanna, sorry.
No problem, thanks. That is important to mention. Daniel?
Yeah, I know we're running a little behind the agenda, but I just wanted to take some time to highlight a new website that we have in development right now. What you're seeing on the screen is a very, very rough draft of what it is. You'll even see there's a lot of just copying and pasting from our old website onto this one. So the content is old and outdated, but I wanted you guys to see this because there's a lot of cool things happening right here. First of all, the main reason, as Danette said, we did strategic planning, and one of the main reasons we want to move away from the old website is the old website is housed within Bernalillo County. And so frequently, even though we're kind of employed by Bernalillo County, the ABC Community School Partnership is really, puts its hat on collaborative leadership. We have partnerships with the city of Albuquerque, but it always seems to focus on Bernalillo County because we sit there. So the main intent of moving away to have a standalone website is to highlight that we're comprised of many partners, not just Bernalillo County. So that was the initial premise of it. But as we're doing this, we're learning we have a lot of capabilities that we want to take advantage of. And I want to give you kind of a quick preview so that you know it's coming. Hopefully we'll have this completed for an announcement by next month, by mid-September. One of the cool things I really do want to highlight, and I want to put on your radar about this, is not only will I have resources and information, but when on the About and in the Community Schools tabs that Deanna's clicking on, we're actually going to put a member login page. And we're going to create a member login for each and every one of you. And so what that will do is they'll allow us to give specific resources, trainings, access to data reporting, a whole bunch of things that we're looking to do in the future to put it on this website. We're going to incorporate some calendars on here. We're going to use this as a platform to really tell our story and tell about all the amazing things you guys are doing. and keep it centralized and focused about why we do the work that we do. I know at the end of last year, we did a workshop where we really got to tell our story about why we're doing the kind of work that we're doing. And so we want to effectively communicate that to the masses of why we do this work and what we do as a secondary type of thing. And so this is in the process, this is in the pipeline. One important thing is hopefully you all have your ABC business cards. And on that business card, there's one of those scan codes that will link directly to this website. And so just wanted to put this on your radar, give you heads up about how this is going to really consolidate a lot of our communication and platforms and how we plan to use this in the future. And there's exciting things to come, but I just wanted to put this on your radar. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for running us through that, Daniel. It is exciting to have a new website. Okay, today, I should have said this at the beginning. Today is a lot of introduction to things we are working on. It's a lot of sit and get today. I'm sorry about that. It's just the nature of a new school year. And so apologies for all of the learning that's happening, but I like learning. So there's going to be a lot of that happening today. Lindsay.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I'll try and be quick with this. This is not the most fun part of the presentation, but I sent everyone, well, actually, now that I think about it, hopefully I sent everyone. If you're new, maybe not. The reentry plan, which is also posted on the APS website and just some and linked there. And some guidance around partnerships specifically and supporting your principal to navigate those partnerships. Essentially, a lot of the decisions regarding partnerships are in the hands of the principals right now. So I'm so grateful that in our community schools, we have all of you working with principals and partners through these processes, and just let me know if you need any support with that. Just as a reminder that if providers are on campus, they are supposed to register in School Dude and have a facilities usage agreement, and then potentially complete a license agreement. They will get that information when they start the process. So that's if they're using space, obviously, facilities usage on an APS facility. And then providers are also supposed to have a signed agreement. May or may not be an MOU depending on the scope of the services, but if they do have an MOU, it's like a supplement to it. And if not, it would just be a standalone document ensuring that they understand COVID safe practices. And I think they're trying to get that connected to School Dude, which would obviously make more sense, but I don't think that's happened yet. And then they also do need to have a current APS background check clearance. All non-APS personnel coming onto campus are supposed to do a health screening. And then if they become sick with COVID, they are supposed to report it back to the school. So the principal, your administrator can go through the rapid response checklist. All of that was in the email I sent. Yeah, if you have any questions about it, I'm more than happy to try and help. I know it's not super clear. Thanks, Deanna. Next slide. Oh, someone is raising a hand. Do we have Erica? I know we're a little behind schedule. Can I try?
No,
again?
we're okay. I mean, I think we're okay, Lindsay. Yeah.
Okay.
Erica?
Yeah, Erica.
Sorry, I know we're behind schedule. Just for
no, that's okay.
And I could talk to you about this on my own, Lindsay, but if we have a partner that's coming onto campus, but they're not hosting their program on campus, they're just coming to have snacks and then gather the children and move on to their facilities, do we still need to have all that stuff put in place?
You wouldn't need like a facilities use agreement if you're not using the facility, but they would need a background check clearance.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So, and there's two types there's supervised and unsupervised clearances. So unsupervised is when they're unsupervised, they have direct contact with students without an APS person with them. And then supervised is when they're in line of sight, and visitors to campus don't need any sort of clearance at all. So, but that's those people that don't have clearance or MOUs or anything. That's when we really need APS staff to take the responsibility for making sure partners are complying with the mask guidelines and social distancing and all those things. Any other questions about the reentry plan, which will probably change like 500,000 times this year. So that's what it is for this week. I actually heard that it may be changing actually today. So, oh, just the next slide. So I just wanted to run through really quickly. This is by no means like a comprehensive list of all the guidelines around partnerships for APS, but these are some things that came up a lot last year. So I'm just going to run through them really quickly, and I can definitely go in depth about any of them with you if you have questions. But so the first one, signing agreements. APS policy says that no one should be signing agreements except for the superintendent or his designee, which may be your principal if he designates them. But yeah, technically no one is supposed to bind the district to any obligation. So just be aware of that. This came up last year with Roadrunner, asking people to sign things, and anyways, so that just, if you're being asked to sign things and you're just not sure, ask your principal, ask me, and then we can just figure out if you have the authority to be signing whatever it is. Formal agreements in building use, I just talked about that, but it's not 100% clear who needs a formal agreement and who doesn't. It is dependent on the scope of services of the partnership, but you can always just contact Dr. Muir, and she has all of that information in her head. Definitely, if there's an exchange of funds, like if you're paying for a service, you do need a professional service agreement. That's like part of procurement law. And a memorandum of understanding, MOU, like may or may not be necessary depending on what the services are. And then applying for grants, this is like a relatively new process. That this, where it says applying for grants, is linked to a grant concept form. There's like, that is the first step of a process if you want to apply for a grant, but you only have to do it if the grant's more than $5,000, and there's reporting requirements, and there's reimbursement requirements, and it's multiple district sites and or pays for FTE. So there's like, I think it's a little confusing, and if you're not sure, just ask. But I did want to mention that if a partner is applying for a grant and to do a service at your school, they probably will need to have like a letter of support from the district. So just keep that in mind as well, even if it doesn't meet all those qualifications I just said. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on briefly was research. And research includes surveys. So if you have a partner who's surveying APS students or staff, that may or may not need to go through the research. No, sorry, no, all the words there. Research review committee. There's a lot of information about that on the APS website, and Michelle Drummond, who I think will be joining us later, she can just, if you're not sure, just ask, and she will say, yes, you need to go through this, or no, you don't. It's just better to know so we can be sure we're staying in compliance. Next slide. So I just wanted to put a couple contexts up here. APS is a huge district, of course, and there's a lot of people at the district to support you with various things. I wanted to put up a couple of people that are here to support you with partnerships specifically. If you're ever not sure who to call, feel free to contact me and I can direct you internally or with whoever on the ABC team. But Dr. Christine Muir, she's the Executive Director of Student, Family, and Community Supports Division. And just because reentry guidelines are changing so rapidly, and she is up to date on those things, she's really the best person to call about reentry plan related questions, partnership questions, but she does get like upwards of 500 emails a day. So if you can't get a hold, but she also somehow responds to them all, but you're welcome to go through myself or my colleague Yvonne. Is she still here? Maybe Yvonne, wave to people. She's the Community Partnerships Coordinator for the Student, Family, and Community Supports Division. So she can also offer support with partnerships or any of these things I've been going through. She focuses a lot on what the reentry plan defines as essential partnership services, so basic needs and distributions and things like that. But she can really help with any sort of inquiries or at least direct you to someone who can. Yvette is the OST coordinator for the district, so she can help with OST related things. And then Vaisu Bronk is the volunteer programs and special projects manager. So she oversees the clothing bank, but she also supports tutoring programs, randomly, that are not always volunteer programs, but tutoring programs, volunteer programs, and then sort of oversees that like unsupervised versus supervised versus visitor background clearance situation. So she's a great person to call to. And when we send these out, these are all linked to their email addresses. So as I said before, you can always contact me. I'm happy to help you try and help navigate or direct you to someone who can. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And yes, all of this will be sent out to you. So you will have the information and the links and the names. And there was a great comment sent to me from Ana Margarita, who's at John Adams. And I love this. She said, this is probably a good time to let new coordinators know, take a deep breath, ask as many questions as you have to while you're working on things. You have tons of supporting people. That's very true. And we would rather that you slow down and ask questions rather than jump into something and then, you know, get into some things that you may not want to get into. So we're very excited to welcome a special guest presenter right now. Dr. Angelo Gonzalez is here, and he, I'm assuming, is going to be sharing his screen. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Angelo, let me make sure you have permission to do that. There we go.
All righty. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here with you all again, and great to see so many people that I have worked with in the past. And I just want to welcome you all to a new school year, and I'm excited to share this presentation with you today. For some of you, this may be something you've seen before. This is something I did for the Echo for Community Schools last year, and it's going to be largely the same content, but I know some of you are new or maybe didn't have a chance to see that presentation. So Deanna, before I get into this, let me just do a quick time check. How much time do I have? 15 minutes? You're muted, Deanna. I'm not sure.
I am. I'm sorry about that. Actually, I think you have until a little after 10.
A little after 10. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
like
keep
10 or so.
Okay, well, let's get through this then. And let's start off with some kind of context setting around the importance of data and why data collection is important in community schools particularly. Because I think sometimes when we talk about data, I think there's a tendency to want to think about data maybe in singular terms and in thinking about maybe data for student outcomes. But really, there are lots of reasons why you might want to include data in your work. So first reason is for understanding both your current and past conditions among students, families, and communities. And I'll say a bit more about this. This is really where your needs assessment plays a big role. Second is thinking about your work with the Community School Council. Data are really, really helpful when you're trying to set priorities, and particularly when you've got limited resources and you can't do everything. Having good data or information can help you make choices, right, around how to prioritize given those limited resources. Data can help you document what you're doing. So it's helpful to be able to tell the story at key points during the year and certainly at the end of the year about all of the different activities and projects that have been undertaken, the numbers of students and families that have been served. You know, it's documenting your work. Data also help you assess your impact, right? So as you're going about and developing projects and conducting various activities and running programs, you know, what is the larger impact for students, families, and the larger communities in which your community school is embedded? Data tell you something about implementation, right? So as you're trying to think about the 4 pillars of community schools and how well you're implementing each of those 4 pillars, it's helpful to really be thinking about what are the data that you need to be able to say, yes, we are really implementing the collaborative leadership pillar in a robust way. We feel strongly that we have in place all of the different things that are going to lead to success in that pillar or any of the other 4 pillars. Data are helpful for making improvements. This is really, when people think about continuous improvement, this is really what that's about, right? It's having the information after a project has been conducted or an activity or program has been conducted to really take a step back and say, what have we learned, right? What worked well, and maybe where do we need to make changes the next time around so that this program or project or activity or whatever it is that we're doing can work better next time. And then finally, I just want to say data are about storytelling. And I think sometimes when we use the word data, it implies numbers, it implies quantitative information, but data are also qualitative. Data are about the real world stories that you hear every single day from the students and the families and staff and community partners whose lives are being changed as a result of your work. That is data just as much as all of the other things that are up on this list. And it's really, really important to have a good sense of those stories to help you tell paint a comprehensive picture of the impact of your work. So let's talk about continuous improvement, because I want to really situate this presentation on data in the context of a continuous improvement framework. And there are essentially two views of continuous improvement. And I really like to think about boiling down continuous improvement into two things. So on the first one is two questions. Are we doing the right things, and are we doing things right? I always come back to these two questions anytime I'm thinking about improvement in work that I'm doing. And then the second thing is, are we using data as a hammer? So maybe it's for compliance purposes, or sometimes I think data get used for purposes. Maybe I know it can feel sometimes like data are being used to beat up on schools or to really make people feel like they're not doing what they should be doing. Or are we using it as a flashlight, right? Are we using it to illuminate the challenges that we're facing as well as the needs, but also to illuminate bright spots, right? Where there's good things that are happening and where we're making a difference. And of course, continuous improvement is really more about the flashlight approach, right? It's moving us away from this idea that data is a hammer toward illumination, really shining the light on what's working well and really shining the light on where there are needs that need to be addressed through our strategies. There's also more formally a couple of frameworks, actually many continuous improvement frameworks. And what I like to say here is that I'm not a big proponent in pushing any single framework on a school. I think, if you have a framework you're already using or that you're deeply committed to, you may have staff or a principal, or you yourself may have been trained in a particular methodology. Those methods, as long as it's a well-known and respected continuous improvement methodology, that's fine. On the left of the screen, you'll see one that is being recommended by the Public Education Department. And so there are resources available on the PED website. This is a West Ed continuous improvement framework. But the one that I always come back to is just the simple PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, and Adjust framework. And I like this one particularly for schools because I know that PDSA is something that most educators have used in their work. And particularly if you've been a classroom instructor or done any work in schools, PDSA is probably something you've seen before. You can pretty much take this PDSA improvement framework and really apply it to anything that you're doing in your community school work. So I'm going to use it today to kind of walk you through different things that you can do with data in the four stages of plan, do, study, and adjust. So on the plan side, this is really where you identify your current conditions and needs, problems that maybe you're trying to solve. This is where you identify the barriers or other, that are standing in the way that you need to be proactive in breaking down, or those supportive factors that could really help you address those community needs. During the plan phase is also where you do a lot of stakeholder engagement, right? This is where you engage students and families and community partners and staff and really casting a wide net to try to brainstorm ideas for how you are going to collaboratively address the needs that have been identified in your community. It's also the space where through that stakeholder engagement, you're making decisions about what to prioritize as strategies or actions that you're going to take in the coming year. And it's really a great space to vet your ideas, right? So if you have things that maybe you're thinking about doing, using your community school council as a way to really engage in a deeper conversation around whether these are in fact the right solutions or strategies to address the needs and priorities that have been identified. The do phase is where you get into, as the name implies, actually doing the work. It's taking all of your priorities that you've identified and starting to get really detailed about the actions that you're going to undertake and who's responsible. There are tools that you can use here. I'm going to walk you through a few of these, so I won't say a lot about them right now, but things like logic models, action plans, developing performance measures, and a data collection plan are tools that can really help you do your work more effectively to have great impact. And I'll say a bit more about each of these in just a minute. The study phase then is where you take that step back, right? So study is something you can be doing continuously throughout the year, but it's also something you can really think about at the end of projects or activities, always taking that step back and saying, you know, what difference did we make? And this is where you ask those two big continuous improvement questions. Are we doing the right things, and are we doing things right? And I'll say a bit more about that in just a minute, but this is also the space where if you've actually collected good data about your activities, this is where you can engage your community school council again, or maybe engaging the right group within your school to say, you know, here are the trends and patterns that we're seeing in our data, right? Why are we seeing these trends? What do we think is going on here? If we see improvements, the question might be, what's driving those improvements? If we're not seeing any positive change, or maybe even a trend that is alarming in the wrong direction, this is where you can start to formulate hypotheses around what is maybe causing those negative trends. And then the adjust phase is where you start to make decisions. And again, the big theme throughout all of this is collaborative leadership, right? So you're engaging your community school council, school staff, anyone who needs to be involved in really making decisions about what you've learned from your study phase that needs to be incorporated into the next round of your improvement cycle. So the questions you would ask are, and I'll say more about this first question, but are there things that we should start, stop, continue, or change? And then what changes do we need to make to our original plan to really address what we've learned from the previous cycle? So let me get into a little bit deeper dive on each of these. And let's see if there are questions in the chat box. Deanna, maybe you can help me out. It looks like, yeah, I'll definitely make sure these slides are available to you, but feel free to ask questions as well. And Deanna, if you can help me, if you see any questions, just let me know.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about plan for a minute. The main thing I want to talk about here is your needs assessment. And I know that you get a lot of support around the needs assessment, and that's a big body of work for any community school. But what I really want to say here is that your needs assessment is the foundation for all of your data collection work. All right, this is where you identify maybe what gaps exist between current and desired conditions. And it's also where you identify the problems or challenges that you want to address through your community school council. Right? So this is really, really important foundational work. Without it, it's really, really hard to identify the priorities and strategies that your council will work on. It really should include a wide range of student data, both academic and non-academic data, and also data pertaining to families and community conditions. So really trying to cast a wide net, right? And saying, let's not just look at grades and test scores and attendance, although that is very, very important. Let's also try to see what data we have about our families. Let's also look at our neighborhoods that our families live in, and let's try to understand the conditions in which families are living. And let's see how those data are actually related to our students and their success in school. Your needs assessment also informs the strategies, programs, and services that you will implement, right? So this, once you identify gaps and needs, this really helps you draw a straight line between needs that you've identified and particular programs, activities, strategies, whatever you want to call them, programs, right, that you're going to actually undertake to address those needs. And that is what makes a community school different than a regular school. Let me just say that's one of the main things, is that you are drawing this line, right, between a need that you've identified to a particular program or intervention to address that need. The needs assessment again, the theme, conducted by a community school coordinator, but it's really, really important that it's in partnership with your community school council. When I say site-based leadership team here, that's the term that PED uses for what you all know as a community school council here in the ABC network. And then the last thing I'll say is that, again, you should be engaging your community school council to review findings, to develop strategies, and to set priorities for your community school. So this is not just something that you as a coordinator should be undertaking alone. It's something that really should be a deeply collaborative exercise with your community school council members. So there are other tools that you can use. I won't spend a lot of time on these in the interest of time, but if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. Something like a logic model is often helpful at the beginning of a do phase, right? If you've identified a need and maybe some things you want to work on, a logic model can really help you clarify how the various strategies or programs or interventions that you want to undertake are related to the kinds of outcomes that you want to improve in your school, right? So if you want to improve student attendance in your school, reduce chronic absenteeism, then what are the different activities that you would undertake that maybe research has shown really could have an impact on improving school attendance? And a logic model can help you sort all of that out to make sure that the things that you're proposing to do really do have a potential to improve the outcomes that you're trying to change through your community school strategies. There are logic model resources I've linked to as well in this presentation. So there's a couple in here, including a tool from the Department of Education, National Department of Education, and then the PED Community Schools website also has some resources. Another tool is an action plan. So action plans are really, really helpful so that you can organize the work. The main reason why you do action plans, though, is to assign roles and responsibilities and deadlines to get things done, right? So action plans are really, really helpful when you're doing collaborative work as well, because what we don't want to happen is to have everything fall on 1 or 2 or 3 people. And that, you know, especially in your role as a coordinator, right? You don't want to be doing everything. You will not be able to accomplish all that you need to accomplish if it's all falling on your shoulders. So an action plan can really help you engage your community school council in a conversation to help assign roles and responsibilities to different activities that you're going to be undertaking throughout the school year, and really lay out a clear timeline for when things need to get done to be able to achieve the larger outcomes that you're working toward. And let me just say, I've given you kind of a blank template up here, but you can use any template that is helpful to you as long as it has some of these core components. The specific actions you're going to undertake, the lead, who's in charge of the action, other team members, meaning other people that are involved in carrying out the action, deadlines or date ranges for when things are going to take place, and a column just to capture any other information that might be helpful for carrying out the action. So here's where I want to get into a little bit more about thinking about data collection and the kinds of data you might look at as you are doing your work. And I have this in the do phase, but in some ways it's also even part of it's even a little bit part of your planning phase, because part of what you're doing here before you ever undertake work is to say, how are we going to measure the impact of our activities? And I like to recommend something called results-based accountability for something like this, because it provides a really useful framework for measurement. Results-based accountability, or RBA, uses 3 key questions to assess your impact. The first 2 questions, how much did we do and how well did we do it, are measures of your effort. And the third question, which is a little bit harder to get at, is did we make a difference, or is anyone better off? And oftentimes it's easiest to get at measuring our effort, right? Because how much did we do is simply counting the numbers of students or families or people that we've served. It can be counting the number of activities that we've conducted, or maybe the number of services that have been offered. How well did we do it gets at things like, there's an acronym for this, the timeliness of our activities, right? If there's some urgency to doing something, did we implement in a timely manner? Attendance, so if we have a family event, You know, what percentage of families actually showed up? Satisfaction. If we hold a family event, do we know if it was actually meaningful to families? Do we have information from our families to tell us what worked and didn't work about that event? Cost may be a factor for some of you, and standards, right? So standards have to do with like, I like to use counseling as an example here. You know, the counselor to student ratio is a well-recognized standard in the profession. There may be other standards though that you use in your work to measure how well you're doing what you're doing. The hardest though is, did we make a difference? Because this is where you start getting into the individual student level, or maybe the individual parent level, family member level, and wanting to understand whether the work that we've done has resulted in changes in their attitudes, their knowledge, behavior, skills, or circumstance. And often you get at this through surveys. Often it's a self-assessment, but sometimes you can observe if there are changes in behavior or things like that. Change in circumstance is a really important one for community schools as well, because think about the housing work you all do. You know, moving homeless families into stable housing is a change in circumstance. That's a really, really important effect measure for community schools, and it's something to be thinking about, right? So again, all of this is about kind of planning proactively about how you're going to measure the impact. And these 3 questions can really help you get at starting to adopt some measures that help you understand whether you're achieving success in your work. So to measure then, it's not enough to just develop your performance measures. You also need to really be intentional about creating a data collection plan. You know, data are not just going to collect themselves. Usually you have to assign responsibility to someone to gather the data. Often, you know, you have to implement a survey, right? Again, as Lindsay said, make sure if it's a survey that's being done by an outside partner, you're getting research review committee approval, and always, you know, inquire about what approvals you need. But my point here, right, is that it takes planning to be able to gather data with intentionality around the performance measures you're trying to track. I also want to just say that you need to plan for how you're going to gather, use, and share protected data. And my main thing here is to always consult your school or your district privacy policies for further guidance. It's super, super important, right, that with the federal regulations around school data, that you know who can see student data and who cannot see student data, and that you're sharing data appropriately with your community school partners. Now, that said, there are some what are called de-identified data that are not linked to students, or data maybe that have been aggregated, right? So you're sharing broad patterns and trends that can be shared outside of the school. And it's important to know kind of the distinctions between the two and bringing the right type of data to your community partners to be able to have those continuous improvement conversations. But again, the message I want to leave you with here is always consult your school and district guidelines. And if you have questions, talk to Lindsay and she can put you in touch with the right people at the district to make sure that you're fully in compliance with FERPA. Last thing I'll say, and I'll wrap it up in a couple of minutes, is when you're studying your data, here are some questions that you can ask yourselves, right? So this is really after you've gathered your data. Let's say you've got some really good performance measures that you're going to be gathering data around. You've implemented your activities, and now you've got some really cool graphs and charts that you've created. The questions that you would be asking are, you know, what are the patterns or trends that we see in the data? So patterns might be, you know, certain subgroups. Maybe you see that certain subgroups are really responding well to a particular program, and maybe other subgroups aren't. Maybe you're looking at your data over time and you're seeing a certain trend starting to emerge over time, and you're asking, like, what's behind that trend? That maybe it's a positive one or a negative one. You're asking, what are some potential causes of these patterns, right? So we're starting to formulate hypotheses or guesses about why we observe certain patterns and trends. We ask, what do the data tell us about the impact of our strategies or our interventions or our programs, right? So if we're collecting data after the fact, ideally, you know, you're seeing some movement in your data from before your program and after your program. And you're asking, well, what do we think is actually driving that change? Or if there's no change, why are we not seeing any change? You evaluate your continuous improvement questions. Again, are we doing things right? And are we doing the right things? And then you're asking, what are the additional questions that the data raise and what more do we need to know? And I think those of you who've been doing this a long time know that data often raise more questions than they answer, which is a little frustrating sometimes. But it's just the nature of this work, right? And it's a mindset that you have to get into when you're doing this type of work. You're never going to have conclusive information. You're always going to have hypotheses, and you're going to be using the information you have to generate hypotheses and really engage your community school council in conversations about what's working well and what might need to change. Now, then the last thing is in the adjust phase is this framework of continue, change, start, stop, continue, and change. So when I say, are we doing things right? If the answer to that is yes, we are doing things right, then that means continue. Let's continue what we're doing that is really working well and showing positive change. If we maybe don't have good evidence that something is working well, or maybe we're not seeing the desired scope of change that we're looking for, then maybe we need to change the intervention, right? Maybe we need to think about tweaking it. Are we doing the right things is a different question. In this case, it might be that we've gone through, 2 years of trying to implement some program or intervention, and we're not seeing any improvement whatsoever. So in that case, maybe we need to have a question about whether we're actually doing the right intervention. Maybe we need to stop doing an intervention and start doing something different. That's what it means to be doing the right things versus doing things right. So then it all comes back to repeating the cycle. I'm not going to go through this in the interest of time, but I'll leave this in here for you just to say that I think the only major point I'll make here is about the needs assessment. I often get asked the question of, do we need to do a needs assessment every year? I'm not entirely sure what ABC's advice is at this time, but I think that the answer is it's not necessary to create a brand new full-blown needs assessment every single year, but it is important to think about what additional data you might want to collect based on what you learned during the previous cycle, and to be having conversations about what other priorities you want to tackle. And if you know that something significant has changed in your community, that you're integrating that new knowledge and information into your previous needs assessment. And then maybe you do a brand new needs assessment every 2 or 3 years. You got to figure out what's the right cycle for your community to update that information to make sure that it remains somewhat current to inform your work. So, oh man, I forgot I had one more slide. Collaborative leadership. I've said this plenty throughout. You can't do this alone. This data work, you always have to do it in the context of collaborative leadership. That's the key to success for these continuous improvement processes. And it really, for this to work, it's got to be embedded deeply in the culture of your school and in your community. And it really helps to have a principal who's a partner with you in this work that's really driving that community school continuous improvement message within the school and in your larger community. So with that, let's stop there. And Deanna, what's next?
So actually, first of all, thank you so much. And what we have next is a 5-minute break. And I'm wondering, Angelo, if you have another 5 minutes, if we can open it up to questions. So if you would like to take a 5-minute break, please do. If not, Angelo, are you available?
Yeah.
Okay, so Angelo will stick around for our break time and answer questions. Thank you so much for that. Comments. That was some heavy stuff, guys.
I have a question. I was wondering, Angelo, could you just explain a little bit more what exactly a logic model is? I've never heard that term. So if you could just kind of break it down a little more simply.
Yeah, let's go back to the slides. So let's see. Hold on 1 second, just getting my slide up. All right, so a logic model is actually a tool that is used in program design and program evaluation. And so let me talk about it from a program design perspective for a minute, because one of the things that a logic model is really helpful for, I have it actually left to right because that's the way they're typically presented, but often when you're developing a logic model, you're developing it from right to left. So you're starting with the outcomes. And usually what you're doing is you're saying, what are the big individual level outcomes that we want to change or improve as a result of our work? So, you know, you work with students and families predominantly, like those are largely the two major groups of people that you work with. So, you know, one of the things that community schools do is you're constantly saying, what are the big outcomes we want to improve for students? And let's say, give me an example of an outcome, student outcome that you're working on.
Food insecurity at our school.
So that's a big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So food insecurity so the outcome you would want to change then is food secure, right? So you would want to have students who are living in families where there's food security. You would probably want to have an outcome related to student hunger. So students are showing up every day, being well nourished. And now you back up from that, right? So then we have conversations about, let's go to strategies next, because now we want to say, well, what are the different activities we would want to undertake that either the research tells us can reduce student hunger or family food insecurity? And then what is our community telling us, right? Or what have we learned from working with our community about best practices or programs? Maybe there are partners in the community that are really doing good work that could really help us achieve that student outcome that we're working toward. So let's say we form a partnership with a food bank, right? So one of our strategies is we create what is a mobile food pantry is something that you do, right? So let's say we have mobile food pantry, and through a partnership, that is one of the things that we are implementing. So then the outputs part of this is where you start to document how many times is that mobile food pantry coming out to work with to provide food for our students and families. This is where you start to document how many families are being served through the mobile food pantry. Maybe you're documenting as well the dollars leveraged through your partnership, right? So you're counting kind of the outputs of that work. And then ideally what you're doing with your outcomes here is you're measuring pre and post. So you have some sense of where you were at from a food insecurity standpoint before you started this partnership, and then after, and that's where your data collection comes in, because it can help you understand whether this particular strategy is in fact leading to the outcome. All the logic model does though, is it helps you organize and draw a straight line from your strategies and interventions or activities to the outcomes you want to change.
Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Did that answer folks' questions, or was that helpful with the logic model? And people can get really elaborate with these logic models, by the way, and I always think they work best when they're simpler. And honestly, this is a lot of logic models are actually very research informed as well. So if you have good research behind a particular program or intervention or strategy, it's really important to represent that in here. One thing I didn't say about this is the inputs. So inputs are also important in a logic model because they tell you about the conditions for success. So it may be that you require resources to be able to implement the strategy. It may be that you need people, to support the work. It may be that it's going to take time. And so really documenting those inputs and knowing what's going to be the conditions that are going to lead to those successful outcomes is also an important part of it. So Rochelle, do you have a question?
Well, just another comment, similar to what Deanna read from Anna before. Like if you're a first year coordinator and you hear the word money, you might think, oh no, how do I do that? So to your point, Angelo, what you just said, like you might need some time and you might need to say, well, that's a big picture idea for 5 years from now as we grow our program, whatever the circumstance may be. Like none of this is going to happen overnight. And Veteran coordinators are happy to help. Angelo, I'm sure you're always available, all the ABC team, like this is a moment to not panic. And the more you learn about your school and the more you know about your resources and the great partnerships that you can build in your community and leverage all of your income and donations and so forth, it happens. Where I am now 7 years in and where I was 7 years ago are two completely different things. So I just want to be an encouragement to new coordinators.
Thanks, Rochelle. And let me just call out Danette's comment in the chat box. She's absolutely right. So I said predominantly you're working with students and families, and Danette correctly reminded me that at times you're going to have other populations that you are working with, including teachers, your community, your partners, your community members. And so, really having a sense of how you're improving outcomes for any partner or any person that your work touches is an important part of this continuous improvement process. Any other questions or any other words of wisdom from the veteran coordinators that have been doing this for a while?
Your presentations always kind of get me grounded. So it really helps to remember our why. And we've heard RBA, right, since Jose Munoz, but you really break it down for us in slides. And I'm like, oh yeah. So thanks a lot. I appreciate you're welcome. You always guiding us.
And I gotta say, so you mentioned the why part of this, right? And if you take my slide, why is data collection important? That's a really powerful slide to have a dialogue with your community school council, to help them understand the different uses for data, right? And why they should be coming into their work with a data informed and continuous improvement mindset. So I'll send these slides around, and you feel free to take and adapt any of these slides for your use. So Christian has Christian, can I read your question? That was a direct message to me. How do you report? So Christian's question is, how do you report success or outcomes to the larger community? And I would say this is one where I would maybe throw it back to the group and maybe to the ABC team for what are some of the best practices around how community schools can report their success or outcomes to the larger community. What have been some
social media, all the handles you can get, because people follow different things. And in my circumstance, my principal manages our Twitter, and I do Instagram and Facebook. So we kind of have all of those covered. But good begets good. The more good news you put out there, the more people are enthused about the things that are happening at your school. They're more willing to donate when they know that they're funds or resources will be put to good use, like the storytelling that goes along with the data. And then I always share that mid-year report and end-of-year report too, so that our community and our partners can see the like the number of meetings I had with my principal. It's not just about the money, it's about the relationships too, and like all the intangible things that come too. So I always share that information with our staff, with our families, with our council, on social media.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say this is where having, really accessing all of your communication channels as a school. So if you've got a newsletter, if you've got a website, right? The only caution I would say here is that make sure any data or information you're putting out, that you do have permission to be able to share it publicly. And this is where really, consulting with your principal, to make sure that you really can share certain information. There may be times when maybe you need to share it with the district first, or get permission from the district. And so just be aware that, data can really be controversial sometimes, or they can be, sometimes you think you're just sharing something really innocuous, and then people, it causes a reaction that you weren't expecting. So just be always aware when you're sharing data about what the implications of that might be. Danette?
Yeah, I also want to just remind everyone to keep in mind that the story is really important, because we tend to share data like we got this many donations, or this many gift cards, or this many whatever's turkey baskets. but which everyone likes to hear, right? But that's not the story behind a community school. Often it is that you had a group of people who came together to try and address a need or grow something that, you know, maybe you had 10 turkey baskets last year. You wanted to make sure you had 25 because you had a waiting list. But that piece of the story is about how community schools operate differently, and they do it over and over and over and over, which changes the way we deliver education and changes the way we support our communities. When we get super caught up in only promoting the thing, that's what it seems like a community school is. And you all do so much more to get to that thing that often doesn't get paid attention to, and it's a lot of work. So trying to weave that into your story is critical.
So we do have to move on. Angelo, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you everyone for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I wish you a very, very successful school year.
Yeah, we are so glad that you were able to join us today. Thank you so much for your time, Angelo, and for that extra time. That was great.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, we're going to turn it over to Jeff. It flows perfectly from what Angelo just said about assessment. Jeff has some additional thoughts to share with us.
Thank you, Deanna, and yeah, thank you so much, Angelo. Been working a lot over the summer and over the past year on thinking about new ways to do community-wide assessments. So lots of time folks have been, lots of the folks in needs assessments have consisted of like surveys, and then you take the surveys and maybe some school-wide data like attendance data or whatever's in the 90-day plan for your school. You bring that to the community school council, and then you all talk about the ways in which, then the community school council then talks about like, what do they think the causes are behind this and what should we do? And I think quantitative data is really important. It gives you a snapshot in time of what's going on. But there's a lot of, I'd say there's a lot of talk, but not necessarily a lot of action at the systems level in valuing qualitative assessments or relational based assessment kind of action, right? So one of the things that I've been working on, and I think this was really highlighted from the Equity and Social Justice Committee, that qualitative and relational based assessment is actually an equity strategy when it comes to community assessment. And whereas surveys or school level data is very transactional, and the information might be useful, but it doesn't do anything to build stronger connections between the community school council coordinator and partners and the community of the school. So one of the things trying to do is create some tools for folks who, well, let me back up a little bit. I know a lot of coordinators have already been doing a lot of qualitative and relational based data gathering. Like one thing I know that's popped up at John Adams, Ana Margarita has been helping her council and her staff learn how to do what are called house meetings, which is essentially someone from the school brings together some parents and community members and just kind of has a facilitated intentional conversation, right, around a specific topic or around, there's a frame for the conversation. And not only do you get a lot of good information from that, but you also form deeper relationships, which pay off, in the short and long term. I know other schools have been doing other types of qualitative assessments, in community meetings or, doing kind of semi-formal conversations with parents and whatnot. And so wanted to kind of make sure to operationalize that, right? Like obviously schools can keep doing what they're doing, but if there are schools who are interested in learning how to do some qualitative assessment and really get a deeper community assessment going, I'm working on developing some tools which we'll introduce in the next month or so, as well as one of the things that I think is really a bummer in the work so far is that systems levels like the state or the city or APS don't have a way to recognize and validate that qualitative information, right? They think it's nice to do, but give us the survey numbers, right? And so trying to develop a way to take that information and help the state or APS or the county or whoever recognize it as valuable information that can lead to action. And so we're trying to develop about like 3 different strategies. One is one-on-one semi-formal conversations. This would be where you or a teacher or maybe another parent sits down with a community member and has an intentional conversation that's been pre-designed, right? There's been some questions that maybe the council or the community has decided that they want to have some answers to, and ways to gather information and data from those conversations, and then see what people said, right? And see what the context and nuance that they bring through those conversations that might inform other points of data like surveys or school level data. Another thing is community meetings. Things where you bring a bunch of people together, you have a topic that you're talking about, and you're trying to gather information from them about what the best way to approach that, whether it's a barrier or maybe it's a goal that the community wants to reach, the best way to address that, or maybe these community meetings might be a way to highlight or dig up some barriers or goals or additional partners, maybe even to bring into the school. And then the third one is some creative-based strategies. One of my favorites of this is it's called Photovoice. And what I really like about this is it opens up community assessment to a lot broader population, not just the folks who are sitting on your community school council. And Photovoice essentially is you might have a couple questions that the community school council or the community wants to uncover. Like really broadly, an example might be, you might ask your community like, hey, we want to see pictures of one place that is central to your life in the community. We want to see a picture of a place that you wish had more investment in the community. And you would ask the community to, just on your cell phones or whatever you have, take some pictures and send them to the community school coordinator or whoever, right? And after a certain period of time, we'll take all those pictures, in the cafeteria or gym, might display all those pictures and invite the community in to say, like, what does this mean, right? Maybe we have 100 pictures of the community center or this one restaurant or a nonprofit organization or a church, right? As a place that's central to the life of the community. Why? What does that mean? What do they do? Why does that make it central to the community? Maybe we have 100 pictures of this park that we wish had more investment in. Why? How can we get more investment in it? What would investment look like, right? And that's a lot more meaningful way to engage the community in asking them, and it's participatory, right? It's asking the community, it's inviting the community in as co-investigators, which is I think something that surveys or school level data doesn't necessarily do, right? And so having those different ways for the community to engage in the community assessment process is really important, and that doubles as like family engagement, right? You could there's also ways it ties into some other pillars that we can talk about at a later date. But I just wanted to let you know that we're working on developing those stuff in conjunction with the Equity and Social Justice Committee. And next month, we're going to be introducing some of those tools. But if you're interested and you're already starting your community assessment process and you're interested in incorporating some of these more qualitative and relational based practices, contact me and I'd be happy to talk with it about you, be a thought partner, see how you can maybe implement that stuff and how you might be able to use that as a really meaningful decision-making process. Also, like I said, there are other coordinators doing it. So if you're seeing or hearing something that other coordinators are doing, I'm sure they'd be happy to talk you through how they're doing it and what's important about it. So yeah, just want to introduce that idea.
Sorry, I can't figure out how to like manage moving slides and unmute myself at the same time. Thank you so much, Jeff. I know that I've already seen some messages in the chat that some coordinators are like, yes, I'm totally doing this. So that's a great idea. And it only took a couple minutes. So Pam Campos, the coordinator at Garfield, was going to speak a little on this part, but she unfortunately had a really bad headache and had to step away. So I'm going to just very quickly go over the code book. Some of you veteran coordinators have heard us talk about the code book forever. we haven't come up with a better name, so we're calling it the code book. But we have made some changes, and the most exciting one is that we are going to be using this year, the code book this year, with all community schools. So all of you will have to know about this and know how to do this, and we will have a training on it coming up soon in the next couple of weeks. But really quickly, why we have a code book. So basically, as part of the strategic plan, there are two committees, the Collaborative Leadership Committee and the Robust Implementation Committee. The Robust Implementation Committee is the one that invited everybody, was it 2 weeks ago, to go down to the ATF offices and see the standards they had been working on. And thank you so much to those of you who participated in that. We have a meeting this afternoon. We'll be looking at that and your feedback. And then we've cross-referenced those standards with the critical practices, with lots of best practice around the whole country and research on what makes a school a good community school, what needs to be implemented. And then we created measures, and those are called variables. So when a community school takes all those variables and then implements them in their school to the best of their ability at that time, this creates a continuum, like a rubric of development for us to really measure. I mean, measure is not the right word, but it's sort of like assess where you are all at with the framework and the implementation. So there are basically four categories in the rubric, 4 stages of development. And the 4 add up to the word lead. So that's why we're calling this, well, never mind. It adds up to the word lead. The very first stage is learning. So you'll be learning about the framework, learning about how to implement community school development. And you might be at the learning phase in some variables, and you might be at other phases in others. That's just the nature of a rubric and a continuum, right? The next phase is engaging, where you're starting to really engage in implementing the framework and doing some assessment. And then the third stage is achieving. So you're starting to achieve outcomes, you're starting to achieve impact, you're starting to really see a difference. And then the last one we call driving. And then what we mean by that is you are now driving transformation in that particular area in the lead continuum. So those are the measures, and I'm going to show you a little example of what that looks like. And then just to let you know that, like I said, in the next couple of weeks, each of you will have access to an online portal where you will conduct a baseline self-assessment. And I do want to recognize the 3 community school coordinators who participated in our beta test last year: Maria from Pajarito, Pam from Garfield, and Charlton from Highland. They were instrumental in helping us really refine this tool and giving us feedback on how they can use it in partnership with their principals, with their community school councils. So we've had a lot of feedback from them and from, like I said, the ABC committees. And then a few schools, and we don't know how many yet, but some schools will be selected to have a formal assessment conducted in the spring semester in partnership with the UNM School College of Population Health students. So, and if you have questions about that particular piece, I'm sure Maria or Pam would be, or Charlton would be happy to answer those questions, because they participated in that as part of the beta test. So really quickly, I just want to show you, this is an example of one of the variables, one of the components and variables of the code book. So in this particular case, the pillar is collaborative leadership and practice, which you see here on the left. The component is called Community School Council Practices and Data, and it's CSCPD for short. And then this is the variable that's being measured. The community school creates an annual report of the community needs and assets assessment results and shares it with the community, which is kind of what I think, Christian, were you the one or whoever was that asked about how do we share? So this is one of the things you could do, right? You can share out the data that you gathered in your qualitative and quantitative assessments that Jeff and Angelo just talked about. So if you were in the learning phase, maybe you didn't get a chance to do that yet this year and you don't have a report. That's fine. You're in the learning phase. You're learning how to do it. If you're in the engaging phase, you have the data, you did the assessment, but you weren't able to get a report created. No problem. You know what you need to do if you want to move into the achieving phase. You will gather the data, do the assessment, and it includes qualitative information, and which adds that nuance that Jeff was talking about. But maybe you haven't figured out how to make it accessible to the public yet, or so if you wanted to be at that driving phase, it includes all the previous phases, right? So you understand the learning, you've done the engaging, you've now mastered achieving, and now you're driving that transformation. You've really mastered all those levels, and you've got a lot of nuance. You've published a report, you use it in your community school council. And that is just one example of how you might score yourself as a school. It's not about you, the community school coordinator. It's about how things are being implemented in your school. So total, there are 4 pillars. Total, there are 20 different components and 98 different variables that you will be looking at as a baseline assessment. Going forward, you will do this once a year, probably in the spring. And this will help you to understand maybe where you might want to improve, where you might want to set some goals, and then you'll be able to look and plan for the future because you have a rubric which tells you, well, if I want to be in that driving phase or moving into the achieving phase, this is what I need to do. This is what we need to do as a community school. So now we know exactly what's required. So let's make that happen. There will be some low-hanging fruit that will be pretty easy for you to implement. And then other things that might be harder and take a little more time. Nobody expects you to be implementing and measuring all 98 variables in 1 year. So don't be afraid of that. Daniel, Danette, did you want to add anything to this?
I do want to say, when we say something like we're talking about your school, none of this is on the back solely of a coordinator. I just want to be real clear about this. You all are the puppet master of this sort of work, but you are not the doers of all of these things, right? It's about systems, and this is part of why we have this code book developed, is so we're looking at systems and processes and practices that a community school does to be highly effective and implement with the highest level of fidelity. That does not mean a community school coordinator is responsible for every single thing on this code, in this code book. Also, it is, I do want to recognize that it is a little bit big for this year, but I do think this is going to be the thing, look at Raina. I do think that it is the thing that's going to help elevate the level of work and expertise that a coordinator brings to the strategy. Again, I know that it is important to get shoes on kids' feet, but the reason shoes can get there is because you all are doing the work and leading the work that is outlined in this code book. And we want to be able to really help people understand the breadth and depth of what a coordinator does, because it is so much more than what people see on the surface. The other thing about this code book and why we are really excited that this timing is happening is this took years to get to, but the Legislative Education Study Committee, who advises the people with all the money at the state, requested or asked, how is it that you're measuring the fidelity of implementation of community schools? This is first that they haven't said, how are you improving test scores? So it was just serendipitous that this is launching right now. So we're really excited to see, with all of the schools that we have going on in so many different levels of implementation, to be able to use this data to really advocate on behalf of you and of the schools. So I'm thanking you up front for your efforts and participation, but also want to let you know that this is not on your backs. And if it is at all possible to complete the code book with your council or a smaller team of your council, so it's also not only your thoughts, but in a collaborative leadership mindset, the thoughts of the team working on this work with you in your school, that would be the ideal way to do it. Thanks. Also want to recognize Deanna has spent untold hours refining and aligning and taking feedback and going back and redoing it again to get this to a place where it has everyone's input that wanted to give input into it, so that we are also modeling that.
Well, I mean, once a coordinator, always a coordinator. You practice collaborative leadership in every aspect. So Danette, do you want to just move right into the database explanation? We have 2 more things before 11. So the database and then the cohort supports.
Sure. Just very quickly, for those of you who have been around a while, We have been talking about this database for 105 years, I'm pretty sure. And again, in making sure that we are aligning and getting feedback and letting people test things, it has taken a very long time. Some were just logistical around data sharing agreements, but a lot of it was about just the climate and the landscape of community schools changing with the state requirements and other Title I requirements and all these other funding stream requirements. We have been tweaking this database to make sure that it is going to meet the needs as broadly as possible. We are finally at a place. Also, set of people tested this out, and I cannot remember everyone who did it, but I know that Anna is now an expert and Jess in the ABC database, as well as some others who did some testing for us on this last year as in addition to the code book. And we believe we've at least got it to a place where we can roll it out to all of you to collect your data and possibly, you know, break it or something so we can find out where the gaps are that we didn't know. Yet Athena and Raina that also helped test it. But we will be rolling this out. You should have received, if you haven't, you will very, very soon, invites with a link, or that might be coming in the chat box right now, to sign up for an hour-long walkthrough and training on the 26th, which is next Thursday, to make sure that you have access, that you understand each section and how you will put the data in. The database is designed to the best of our ability to eliminate the majority of the, I like to call, bean counting spreadsheets that we have, the participation type data that you're tracking. And then it will also then spit out the reports for you once we get data in there to start to build the reports. So whether it's out of school time, adult education, Roadrunner food pantry, those things where you're typically writing it down in those spreadsheets that we've had for a long time, this will replace that. It should also, the other thing I want to recognize, if it's okay with Lindsay, the active consent, is it okay for me to talk about that?
I mean, we have it later, but you can talk about it.
Okay, I'll let them talk about it, but I just want, everyone should be like jumping up and down and giving Lindsay the most amount of credit in the world, because she got the active consent forms on the registration for parents. You do not have to run around trying to make sure people have signatures. So she'll talk more about that. But anyway, please sign up for that hour. We have various hours. It's like we have a block of like 5 hours or something next Thursday, and there's an hour at a time to sign up for on the Google spreadsheet or the Google form, so that we can walk you through how to use the database, because it will be something that we will be using for a lot of reporting to our various funders starting in September. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them to me in the chat or unmute and ask.
So I did just put the link in the chat, and like literally go ahead and open it. Take 2 seconds to fill it out if you can. If not, say open it and don't close it so that you can do it later. And I do want to also just add that our planner folks are going to be designing the training, and they will be leading and participating, like helping you, walking you through the training from the coordinator perspective, because we realize that, you know, you all are the ones who have to use this tool. So thank you to them for that planning. Okay, Jake.
Hey, everybody. So we just wanted to talk briefly about our cohort structure and just kind of speak to what it looks like for this year. First, as always, we want to acknowledge that we take your guys' feedback very serious. And so we heard a lot of feedback around just the amount of time in cohorts last year and previously, and you know, what does that mean as you coordinators become more and more entrenched in your school, in the work itself. And so we established just 3 major cohorts. The first cohort is an ode to the growth that APS has really done over this past year. So it's for all brand new community schools where there's a new community school coordinator and a new principal. engaging in the strategy. We know that launching a community school or rebooting, either way, takes a lot of work, and it's a little bit different than once you have have a system that's already in place. Cohort 2 is coordinators with less than typically 2 years experience. Could be a principal that has less than 2 years experience in the strategy as well. And it's really just mostly about how, once you're in a space where maybe there is some structure in place, how do we continuously grow to become a full-scale functioning model of a community school? And then cohort 3, which is a lot of you guys that have 2.5 or more years experience as a coordinator. And we acknowledge that by being in those spaces for that long, you have seen a lot of school year cycle, you've seen a lot of the different trainings, etc. So we're approaching each cohort differently. Each cohort 1 and cohort 2 have both already met and kind of voted as units on when they would like to meet in support of the work that they're doing. And then cohort 3, we wanted to really just leave it up to you guys. We have the huddle, which is obviously once a month. And we know that in acknowledgement of your guys' comments in the past, that it really is better to have it on a like when you guys need the support basis. And so beyond the huddle space, we wanted to just acknowledge that you guys have the option as well to ask ABC to help facilitate skills building or extra training for that cohort as well. Deanna, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Except that each cohort has set up their own meeting times. And the cohort 3 is mainly this meeting, which is going to be optional for you going forward, and by request. All of us are available to any of you by request. So if there's something, that's why we spent so much time at the beginning kind of introducing ourselves, so that if there's a thing that you need help with and you want to just have a one-on-one meeting with ABC staff, we are open to that. Some of us are having open office hours. Some of us have scheduled regular cohort meeting times. So it looks a little bit different than it did last year. And I'm sorry, Jake, if I'm repeating this, but I am the coach for cohort 1. Jake is the coach for cohort 2, and then the whole team is available to cohort 3 on an as needed basis. So there are no formal meetings for cohort 3. Did I say that right, Jake?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Oh my God. Am I in cohort 3?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Raina, have you been a coordinator for more than 2 years?
Well, I told you I wasn't paying attention. Sorry.
Raina is going to be in cohort number 5.
Raina is in cohort 18. Yes, along with you, Maria and Rochelle. So I do want to say though that if you want to join cohort meetings, like if you feel like you need more support for something, please let us know. And we are very, nothing is ever written in stone, as you all know. And we appreciate your flexibility with that. But yeah, just let us know. And there was a question in the chat just about support for principals in cohort. So we don't actually have a support structure for principals yet. We hope something is coming soon.
I do want to say that I don't know if all of you are aware, but APS has posted a new community school development specialist position that went up last week, and that is their role. That will be part of their role. But also for those that have state grants, the ECHO approach will be open to all community schools in New Mexico this year. And it'll be, I believe, the first Thursday of the month will be coordinators. I could have this backwards. I didn't make the meeting yesterday, so I apologize, but you'll get the gist. The first Thursday of the month will be community school coordinators, and the third Thursday of the month will be geared at principals and or principal coordinator teams. I'm not sure what was decided yesterday, but there will be some support more broadly. And as well as Lindsay and I are also always available if it's, if it's like, navigating the district, Lindsay can connect them to the right person, or their principal support should be able to help. If it's connecting the dots for community school strategy and teaching and learning, or more about the implementation of community schools or community school strategies, then we are certainly able to support and help if your principal is open to that. So reach out, and if we can't do it, we can connect them to someone who can.
Okay, Lindsay.
Oh, perfect. Well, I'm going to say one more thing about this, and oh no, this one's not me.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead.
One more thing. So we're still sort of trying to sort out last year, if there was district departments that wanted to present to community school coordinators as a group, but not necessarily PD in the community school strategy, but obviously very related to the work you do, those will probably be on these third Fridays as well. So for those of you in cohort 3 who are not coming every Friday, we'll let you know, I've already received a couple requests to have Heather and the employee wellness person come talk. So we'll try and get those all around the same time. So those of you in cohort 3 can just choose when the best time to come is, and continue to let me know if there is like district information you need, and same with the ABC team, or let all of us know if there's specific information you feel like you need to do your job effectively. We would like to hear that. But district information specifically, everyone's always trying to get in front of the coordinators. So.
Rochelle, you had a question? Or comment?
No, just a comment, and it's fine.
Sorry, that was my bad.
God damn it, Jess. Okay, this just is actually conveniently similar to what Lindsay just said. Like, I'm happy, and I'm sure I speak for all of my veteran colleagues too. Like, I'm happy to pop in and offer some advice at this point. I still have a lot of things that pop up that's like, oh my God, that was new. But there's other things that are as natural as breathing to me by now. And I, again, just have been reflecting on how that hasn't always been the case. So if you need something specific to the South Valley or food distribution or something, just throw it out there in the group chat, and we can, offer our experience to you to see if it's helpful, whether it's a geographic thing or a programmatic thing or a data collection thing or a reporting thing, whatever. Just throw it out there and we'll see what we can do to help. Because now I'm wondering what I'm going to do with all my free time without a required meeting, and so I'm happy to hop in.
Never say that. Knock on wood.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And free time. No.
I'm getting sweaty now that you're calling me out on that. No,
but I will say though, it is kind of funny. I don't know if Jessica Dinsmart is still here, but when she first started as community school coordinator, she called me and she was like, I just feel like I'm not doing enough. I told her, yeah, just enjoy it, because pretty soon you will not have time to breathe, which is true. So Maria asked a great question, which was, can you please put the meeting schedules in the chat? And I told her, even better, we have a website. So thank you to Alex, our awesome intern. We have a Google site that will eventually be linked to the one that Daniel showed you. So when we have that login, members only thing, you'll be able to log in to access this site. So it's called ABC Rise to Lead. So just for your information, we at ABC are structuring our trainings around a format called RISE, which it stands for relationship building, influencing, strategic thinking, and executing. So the sections that we've done so far are relationship building. We didn't actually have an influencing section today. We've been talking about with Angelo and the data and all this, the strategic thinking, and now we're getting into the executing phase of what we're going to need to actually be doing. So we call that RISE, and LEAD is the acronym for the database. So it's Rise to Lead. So each cohort has their own page on this website, and that page it does have a calendar. Sorry, it's loading a little bit slow, and it's a Google Calendar. So you'll see, we have to update some of this still. It's still in process, but I promise we'll have it up and ready to go very, very soon. So we've cohort 1, cohort 2, cohort 3. We're hoping that on the home page, we'll have a calendar of all the community school council meetings. There is a tab for community school grantees so that Lindsay can upload information there. We're going to have news, so APS news, ABC news, ATF news, so that you can just, this is our hope here is this is a one-stop info resource center for you. We will have resources and tools here for you. So pretty much everything is going to be captured in the database, right? But there's a couple of things that won't, that you might still need to use a spreadsheet. So those tools will be linked here. We might have some optional tools for you in case you want to use them. And darn it, there was one other thing I was going to say that principals will be able to see the news on here, I think, right, Lindsay? We were going to give principals access to this so that they can see. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So we won't be using the folders, the community school folders this year. You are still welcome to use your folder, but we're not using those tools really anymore. So this is going to replace the folder. So everything that we have is going to go on here. And once the two websites are merged, you'll have just one place to go. You'll click in there. The database will be linked to that website. The code book will be linked to that website. This Google site is linked to that website. Everything will be, you just click on the website and it should all be right there for you. And I just saw Maria clap her hands, so I'm so glad that you approve. But we're still working. It takes time to build these things, right? And we hope, we are going to be next week sitting down and trying to like plan out our whole entire year so that we can get these calendars going. Raina?
Will you say that one more time? Not because this time I wasn't paying attention, but because I just want to make sure I really am hearing you. No more Google Drive, Google Docs.
We're not going to be using the community school folders that we had last year. And we don't plan to use the toolkit that we had last year, but there are still a few tools that you might like, the qualitative assessment, for example, the quantitative assessment, the leverage map. Like there's a couple of things that aren't in the database, but all the whole child metric, all those things, the participation out of school time, all that stuff will be in the database, which will be linked to our website. So yeah, and those tools will be here. Like there's a very, it will also force you to make copies so nobody types over top of the template. What that does mean though is that we won't have access to it. So if you want us to see it, you can share it back with us, but or you have to share it out with anybody. But we do have one little spreadsheet right now. Really, it has like 5 tabs, and it's mostly for the assessment data. So there will be optional tools. There's a couple things that might be required, like the leverage map, the asset map. And then the qualitative and quantitative data. But for the most part, it's all going to be in the database and then the code book.
I see, Rochelle, you have your hand up. Just really quick, and maybe Deanna said this, is that a lot of schools are required to do state reporting, and we really want to make sure that whatever we as ABC APS are requiring is aligned with that. Those of you who have had the grant for a couple of years did a lot of double reporting for a lot of years. So sometimes it's unavoidable because the PED is such a moving target. Sorry, but hopefully we can try and align. Rochelle?
Oh no, I think that
was an error.
hand.
I forgot to lower my hand. Thank you for noticing.
No. Okay, this is me too. So in a couple 10 minutes, hopefully, we'll have some people from SAPR, from the Office of Accountability and Reporting coming to, those of you who have been here have seen this same presentation, I think, every year, but it is like, APS is such a data-rich district, so much so that sometimes it's hard to know where the data is or how to access it and things like that. So they'll be coming in, and I have been working tirelessly since school started to get everyone access to Synergy, but I don't know why it's so difficult. So there's still some people who don't have access, but I'm working on it. I think there's like 4 of you. If you try and log in after the presentation today and you're not able to get in, please shoot me an email and let me know. They say it works, but there's no way for me to know for sure. And during the presentation today, if you're one of the people that doesn't have access, you won't be able to access it, but we're recording this presentation, so hopefully you can just go back to it. They're not going to spend a lot of time like problem solving, helping people get in. Okay, but I wanted to just talk briefly about data sharing. This is clearly something we've been doing for a really long time. And I think especially now that we're using the database, we've been really conscientious about making sure that we're data sharing in a way that respects student and family privacy and is legal. So as has come up multiple times today, data drives the continuous improvement process that we have going at our community schools. And it is a bit of a challenge at a community school because we work with a lot of non-APS community partners. Some of you are not, even our coordinators are not employees. So FERPA law makes that sort of difficult sometimes in APS policies, but we have, we've put a lot of practices into place for this year that will make it a little easier, hopefully. So the APS student handbook, which I'm sure you guys have all read thoroughly back to back, does outline practices with respect to Family Educational Record and Privacy Act, that's FERPA, and student records. If you want to read it, there is also a section on community schools in there, which I did not know until I was preparing for this presentation. So that's cool. In there, it does outline what is considered directory information. Directory information can be shared with anyone. There's, it's not protected by FERPA. So that includes student name, mailing address, phone number, and grade level. Which does seem a little weird, but that's what we consider directory information. So in our database, we have put on like 1 million levels of protection, and hopefully we'll be able to like ease up some of it as we move forward, because really the end goal for me anyways is I would love to be able to be collecting community assessment data, know exactly which student and family needs what, be able to track what sort of services, supports, and programs they're involved in, and see how that impacts other data points like attendance, behavior, and grades. And I think we're a step closer to that than we've ever been before because the database is linked to SIS. So, sorry, just as an aside, but the only thing in the database that you will have access to is directory information. So all of the other protections we've put in place are sort of unnecessary, but we're just doing all of the things. So as Angelo mentioned earlier, de-identified data is always okay to share. That's like data that doesn't include any personally identifiable information or data that's aggregate. The only thing to be careful about is there is some risks when sharing de-identified data, specifically if there are identifiable, characteristics. So this is the only example I can think of, but if you share with your council that 100% of Black or African-American students in grade 3 are chronically absent, then that is a violation of student privacy because they would be able to figure out who those students are because grade level is directory information. So there's lots of, I don't think that this has been a huge problem in our community school initiative historically, but it's just worth keeping in mind. And there's lots of techniques out there that you can use to make sure you're sharing data in a way that respects student privacy. But I just bring that up because in our council meetings, we're looking at data almost every time. Another way to make sure you're in compliance with FERPA is with active consent. So this, as Danette was mentioning earlier, is really exciting. We have crafted active consent language that's approved by everyone that needs to approve it. And families, when they sign that, it gives consent for the school to release educational records. Active consent has to say what educational records may be disclosed. Ours includes personal information, so that's like anything about the person, including directory information, but also demographic information and things, and then attendance. So it's just like a little bit of educational information for this year, but it's a start. The purpose of the disclosure, which we have written as evaluating program effectiveness and assessing impact, and who we're sharing with. So our active consent form says any partner who's providing a service, support, or program to the child and the staff of the ABC Community School Partnership.
Generally, what's recommended is that sort of language is included on registration forms. And as Danette was mentioning earlier, this is why it's so exciting that it's on our school registration for all of our community schools, because parents provide that, like acknowledge that once when they're registering on Parent View, and then you don't have to deal with it again. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, like in depth, how that will play out in the database itself when we meet next week. But if families have questions about it, I don't know, I'm kind of curious, like, has there been a lot of questions about it? Well, I can see this myself. No.
We did have one phone call from a parent who was like, who are you? Why am I giving you my information?
I know, I love that a parent called ABC instead of their school, but that's amazing. So, okay, well, if they have questions that you're not able to answer, just connect with me, but that's really exciting. And then we have another layer of protection, which is data sharing agreements. We're have active data sharing agreements with our community partners that employ community school coordinators. Rochelle, help me remember, we need to update one though. And then also with ABC, and then we'll just, as we're this year, we don't imagine having a lot of community partners actually inputting data. That is the goal for the future, other than our Children's Choice and UNM coordinators. But in the future, if partners are in there entering data, we will go into agreements with them as well. And now that we have a template for it, we're good to go. So that's just, like I said, this hasn't been a huge problem in the past, but moving into this more like formalized way of collecting data, we just need to make sure we're in compliance with FERPA. And if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And I think now, Deanna, are our speakers here?
Yeah, Brian is here. And I also just wanted to mention, I put the link to the active consent form in the chat, and we will link it on this, the picture right here in the middle, the little with consent. I am a parent of a student at a community school, and I didn't know that it was there. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. So you can read what it says, so that if people do call you and ask you questions about it, you'll know what it says. So, and then do feel free to call Lindsay, or us if you're not sure how to answer those questions. So Lindsay, do you want to introduce? Okay, great.
Totally. So we
Ron
have
is here as well.
A couple people from the APS Office of Accountability and Reporting here that are going to talk about all the different applications you can use to find data. And I think they'll be sharing their screen, Brian, I don't know if that's correct, so they can kind of walk you through some things. We have someone from SAPR, well, I actually am not exactly sure what the org chart looks like over there, but we'll be talking about SAPR and Synergy and Versafit. So thank you, John and Brian, so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And like I said before, if you are not, if you can't get into Synergy right now, we are working through that. And please just watch the presentation and try and like set it in. So, okay, thank you. And I'll turn it over to you, Brian and John.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. My name is Brian Cockrell. I work at the Strategic Analysis Program Research Team. My colleague John Clack is on here with me as well too. And I believe we had one more person who's going to be joining us. That would be Jude Garcia from the Student Information Systems team. What we're going to talk about today a little bit is looking at some student data in the system. And I see it looks like Jude's coming on here first. So I think the flow will be, we'll take a look at some Synergy stuff. We'll take a look at some stuff that's available to us on the SAPR websites, which is some of the public-facing stuff, and then the internal visualizations that we have for the APS community. And then finally, we'll get into the Versafit site here over the next half hour. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes going over each session here. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jude to start us out here. Jude, you ready to show some Synergy stuff to the group?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Brian. Let me go ahead and just share my screen. All right. And let me go ahead and, my name is Jude Garcia. I work in the Student Information Systems Department, and I just wanted to make sure to let you all know, I believe we are down to a handful of school community coordinators that we are attempting to resolve your access to Synergy. So if you are not aware what Synergy is the student information system for Albuquerque Public Schools. And I need you to be aware what Synergy is, because Synergy is the system of record for all student and family information. So just when something might be, as you're viewing information in other third-party systems or other APS systems, and all of a sudden like, hey, there's a phone number wrong, or there's an email address, or something's just not something's not accurate when it comes to data, it all relates back to Synergy, the student information system. So I just want to make sure that if it's not correct in Synergy, then it's not going to be correct anywhere else, kind of thing. So, but to access Synergy, you can access just from the aps.edu website page. We have Synergy located right here in the upper right-hand corner. You click on Synergy, and if you've never logged into Synergy, you definitely want to make sure as soon as you arrive on the login page, you want to check for pop-ups. So if you are not allowing pop-ups in Synergy, you're going to become extremely frustrated, because any links that you find in the system, such as parent information, student information, it's going to want to open up a new window. So just make sure you can always, just in case your web browser isn't screaming at you about pop-ups, you just want to make sure that you always allow pop-ups, and you can just check right here, check for pop-ups, and it'll let you know when you, if you have any type of pop-up blocker. You do log in once you do have your APS credentials. I know a lot of you do have your first name dot last name as your login, which is perfectly fine. As contractors, that's what you would log in with. Or some of you also have a badge number, which starts with an E, and then your 6-digit employee number, and then whatever APS password that you get into your APS email account will also get you over into Synergy. So if I can remember my own password, we'll go ahead and log in here. District notifications, there'll always be sometimes announcements that pertain just to you. So it never hurts to just don't close this right away. There actually might be stuff in the announcements that pertain to you, or possibly any type of welcome back messages, or any updates related to elementary scheduling, or even attendance information, or even trainings are posted here. So I know a lot of people have gotten into some bad habits of just closing that right away. You know, I invite you to go ahead and possibly read through some announcements, because there is information pertaining to a lot of student information, knowing how we reclassify students at the high school level. So I just invite you to please don't just close the announcements window. Definitely please take a look and make sure that there's no announcements that pertain to you. I also invite you guys, if you have not ventured over to the intranet website for SIS. So intranet.aps.edu, and again, logging in with your APS username and password. At that point, that's where you can access the Student Information Systems link. And then at that, there's tons of training videos, guys. There's tons of training videos for basic navigation on how to use Synergy, kind of thing. But I know a lot of you have already been in Synergy for a number of years, and just here typing into your quick launch, getting over to the student screen. Just typing in student, or if you're familiar from your menu tree, click on the little broccoli thing that looks like a tree right here, Synergy SIS, and then under student, you will also find the student screen. So whichever way, there's multiple ways of navigating Synergy and to get to the student screen. And then once you're on the student screen, you can easily punch in a student ID number. Or possibly look a student up by name. But also I know a lot of you are assigned to your school or multiple schools. So just make sure that your focus is also set to what you're looking for. So you always want to make sure your focus is set to the 21-22 school year. the school that, that you want to inquire on students for. And then always just make sure that you're showing active and inactive students. If you only have it set to one or the other, and you're looking for students, again, you can become very frustrated, not realizing that maybe the student has been withdrawn from that school, or maybe has now enrolled at another school. So just make sure you always have it on show active and inactive students, and then just don't forget to click the save button. And then at that point, like I said, once you have the students that you need to look up, you can go ahead and start typing that in. As long as there is a student with that name at that school, it is going to go ahead and pull that student for you. You will have access to a number of tabs that scroll from left to right. So just make sure demographic information is going to be all the basic demographic and census information about that student, such as home addresses, phone numbers, anything. And then there's also a bunch of other information that's also included on a lot of Synergy screens, especially the tabs. So again, it's like announcements. There's lots of helpful information that has been embedded within the system on different tabs and screens that pertain to the information on them. The Parent Guardian tab, this is where you'll be able to view the parents and guardians information along with rights, who has educational rights, who has custody, along with phone numbers, and even just clicking on parents' names right here. Again, it's a link that's going to want to open up a window. This is where you can get into the parent information, such as home addresses, phone numbers, work phone numbers, internet access, lots of information related to the parents now. And then again, you have, once you're on the parent screen, you have a number of tabs scrolling from left to right that you can see the sibling information. And even if you needed to go as far as viewing any parent contact information would be listed right here as well. Going back to the student screen, there is also the student contact log here. So there is a difference. The student contact log is different than the parent contact log. And you just want to make sure that when you're initiating any communication to students when using the email parents right here. So on the Parent Guardian tab, there is an email parents button. Just make sure that if you are going to email parents and if you want it documented in the contact log, just make sure, don't forget the student. So then that also gets logged in the also in the student contact log, along in the parent contact log. But again, just make sure that if you want it to appear in both places or just one or the other, we'll just make sure that you're including all the parties involved. But this is, I know I'm going really fast because I only have 10 minutes here, but I just want to invite you again, if you have not attended even just a basic navigation for Synergy, please access the intranet website for APS, intranet.aps.edu. Log in with your APS username and password. And then I do invite you to get over into the A to Z directory and just locate information systems. And as you access the student information screen, sure enough, right below we have our new user training or just basic navigation trainings, along with training documents. But again, Synergy is the system of record for student information and family information. And again, if it's not accurate or correct in Synergy, then it's not going to be accurate anywhere else. All right, I will go ahead and stop sharing and pass it over to the next person that will connect the dots on the information that's going to be displaying in other systems. But again, it pulls from Synergy over into the other visualizations and other reports. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jude. Appreciate the information there on Synergy. So I'll go ahead and share out next, and I'm going to talk about the VersaFit system. So some of those of you who were with us last year may remember that we went over a whole system training on the VersaFit system here. So today I'm going to go at a very high level. I'm just going to point out some of the stuff that can be done with the system, the way it works, and looking at some of the different student groups. And talk about a little bit about how we do have a connection from Synergy over to VersaFit. So it is important that we do know that the data that you're going to see over in VersaFit is majority of it's going to be Synergy data. So as Jude mentioned earlier, if you find something that looks wrong or something that doesn't make quite sense to you, make sure that you're checking your source data, and that's going to be the Synergy system. So you can always talk to your clerks at your school or someone like that who's familiar with it. They can help you take a look at that data there. So we do take this data from the Synergy system and synchronize every night to the VersaFit system. So it takes a lot of that student information and displays it into graphs and different charts for you to see. So I'm going to go ahead and share out here and let you see what that will look like here. So as Jude was taking you through Synergy here, he was working off of the student screen here. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back over there. So when you're in the student screen or the parent screen or many of the other screens that you find here in Synergy, you're going to have a menu button up here in the top left-hand corner. Like right now, you'll see that mine is kind of grayed out and I actually can't pull anything off of that menu right now because you have to actually first make an inquiry into the system here in Synergy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just pull up the first student off the list just by clicking this next button here. And then that pulls up the first student here. And once that happens, the menu button becomes active for me. And now when I hover over that menu button, I'll get the menu options here. And at the very bottom of those menu options, you're going to find the link that says Open Advantage School Detail. So when you're in Synergy, it's just a couple of clicks over again. So remember, pull up, make an inquiry into one of these screens here, whether it's student screen, parent screen, whatever you're looking at here. That will make this menu button active. Select the bottom link here. It says Open Advantage School Details, and that'll launch you into the VersaFit site. And the reason why that we tell everybody to go through Synergy is because when you go from Synergy into VersaFit, it passes a token along from one system to the next, identifying who you are, what locations you have access to, and what students you have access to. So this is the VersaFit site. I'm going to go ahead and use the main navigation button here, and I can see the different sections that I have available to me. Now, depending on your role, you guys are in the process of being set up. Most of you probably already have access. There's a handful of you we know that we're still working on. You should have this real soon here, but you will have access to the principals section, which is basically a school admin section for your location that you're at there. There's a teacher section that allows you to look at data at the section level, at the course and section level. There's an assessment section that has a whole bunch of different dashboards on the assessment results for our students. There's a student search section that allows you to go in there and quickly pull up one individual student that you may be looking for data on. And then there's also a reports section where you'll have different reports. There's some early warning reports that help us identify students that may be at risk for failing. So for today's purposes, I'm just going to kind of go over the principals section here. And right now I am currently looking at data at Taft Middle School right now. And it has a whole bunch of different collections of data here in these different dashboards where you're going to see this stuff here, where it's going to be aggregate information for the school that you're working with. This dashboard in particular, that is the kind of the landing page for the principal section, is called the School Monitor Dashboard. And it contains attendance, behavior, and course grade information, and also a little bit of enrollment information. At the top of my screen, you're also going to see that there's other subjects that are related to this principal section that I'm on right now. And I can tell them under the principal section by looking underneath the APS logo right here. It tells me where I'm at in the system right here. And then these different sections, or subjects rather, are going to be related to that principal section. So I have attendance, enrollment, and discipline here. And when I click on one of these links at the top, what it's going to do is open up these child links down below in the row underneath that will link to some other dashboards related to enrollments. You'll see there's a high school AP courses potential dashboard, there's an enrollment dashboard, a demographics dashboard, and an analysis dashboard. So for those of you that remember, one of the cool things about VersaFit is that it allows you to quickly go in here and see data for different groups of kids. So one of the things that we're doing a lot of focusing on this lately here has been the groups of the Yazzie Martinez litigation stuff that's taking place there. So there's those different groups that we've been looking at and focusing our data on. And you can access those different groups here by clicking on the blue filter data button in the top left-hand corner in VersaFit. You'll find that this is going to be present on pretty much every screen that you find here in VersaFit, where we have these interactive charts and dashboards for you. You can go in here and quickly change up the views by applying some filters here. So for example, if I want to see maybe what does my special ed population look like, I could go over here to special ed, choose the filter that is special ed. And what I do to apply a filter is just click away from it after I've selected one. And that will put it in place here. You'll see up to the right of my filter data button. And now I'm looking at data for Taft Middle School and for students who are special education there. Now, a lot of times people say, well, you know, I want to see special ed, but I don't want to include the gifted kids here. So I just want to see my students with disabilities. So you can go in here and also filter this data down a little further and say, I want to go to the SPED filter and select students who are not special educations, because special education students include gifted students kind of by default here. So just remember, if you want to exclude special ed, you want to use the special ed filter and say not SPED here. And then I can go ahead and click back over here. Sorry, I can go back to my gifted filter rather. I wanted special ed. I'm sorry, I'm going to kind of got turned around there. Let's go. I do want special ed students, but I do not want to include my gifted population there. So now I've got those two filters in place. I click away from there and that will apply that and change up my view here. So now I'm looking at data just for students who are not gifted and who do have a special ed status there. Apologies on that. All right, so what's another great thing about VersaFit is now that I have these populations or these different groups that I'm wanting to see here and get some more information on, I can go through these different charts here and see now I'm looking at just attendance data here, behavior data, and course grade performance for my students here, and also enrollment numbers here for students who just meet that criteria that I specified at the top there. Now, a lot of times people are saying, okay, when I want to, start looking at who are these kids now, so who are these 76 kids here that meet that criteria here? And in VersaFit, one of the nice things is you have the ability to drill down on all these different charts and metrics here, where you see, as you start hovering over and looking at the different data points here, that your cursor turns into the little hand icon that's, when you're on the internet, indicating that that's a link. So I can click on these and I can drill down, and any chart, any kind of graph that you see here in the system, they'll give you that ability to do that and go down to see who are the kids that make up those 76 kids who are in special ed at my location, for instance. And then the nice thing is you can go down one step further, and once you find the certain student that maybe you're working with here and need some more information on, you can click on that student here, and it's going to drill you down to their student profile. And on the student profile, you're going to find a lot of historical information on the students here. So you can see not only their current enrollments, their current classes, current attendance for them for this year, but you can see everything that they had done in the past with us as well, as long as they've been in APS with us. The data goes back very far in VersaFit. So if we have kids that are with us here, 8th graders here, for example, here, if he started out with us here in APS, we can go back and see, where has this student been at? You can see his student actually looks like he has been here for a while with us. So he's been at Mission, he's been to Taft. So you can see back school enrollments, you can see back their student schedules, which also show you which teachers the students have had in the past, what kind of courses they've been taking, discipline, if the student has had any discipline incidents here, you can see that information as well here. Test scores is a very highly popular area of the student profile. It's visited often here for different purposes, SAT purposes, IEPs, things like that, where they want to go and see the student's test history here. So that's all available in the student profile as well. And then, of course, the nice thing about VersaFit is anything that you see here in the system, you can export all this data out of here. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this student's profile here just to get back to where I was at. Let's see, so now I'm back, it does open another tab when you go down to the student profile, so just keep that in mind. It will open up another one, but you can just switch back to your tab at the top. That'll get you back to where you started at. As I was mentioning, one of the things that's nice is that you have the ability to pull out data from the system here. So no matter where you're at, you're going to pretty much see in the top right-hand corner of most of the graphs, you'll see this arrow here that says send. And when you click on that send arrow, it'll give you the ability to download any of the data that you're looking at here, either into Excel, into a PDF or CSV file, which is just a flat text file. And some of them also give you the ability to download the image of the graph here. So you can take this data out and export it, put it into other reports you're working on, or if you're taking this to share with somebody in the community or the parents, you can use this kind of information here. As Lindsay was mentioning earlier about student data, and there is some privacy laws around that, so we've got to make sure that we are adhering to those. VersaFit is one of those systems that does contain sensitive information because we're looking at student level details here. So it's important to keep in mind who's going to be seeing this and what sharing agreements we have in place with those individuals who may be looking at this data here. So just do know this is sensitive data, just as what we saw back in Synergy just a little while ago, that this is student level data with student details in here. So in a minute here, I'm going to be switching over, and my colleague John Clack will be showing you the SAPR websites here, where you'll find some information that has internal visualizations for the APS community. And there's also an APS dashboard that is a public-facing dashboard where you'll find a lot of information on attendance, behavior, course grades, and stuff like that. That can be shared out to the community and with parents, where you'll see more aggregate information. So you're not going to see the student level detail stuff that you see here in VersaFit, but it will give you a lot of information that can still be shared out to the community, and it's very useful. You'll be able to see that kind of information on a trend basis where you can see it year by year. So he'll take a look at that, or rather show you that here in just a moment here. As I mentioned today, this is a very quick overview of the VersaFit system. There are some more trainings that are coming up here. So if you have not received training on VersaFit and you are interested in doing that, please reach out to Lindsay and let her know, and I can arrange something for you to get you into one of our sessions that we have set up that's coming up, or I can make arrangements even to work with you or your team at your school. So I'd be happy to show you some more of this in depth here. But I'm going to go ahead and switch gears for right now and go ahead and turn it over to John if you're ready.
Yes. Okay. So I'll be presenting the data that you can share with community members, but also information that's more useful at a high level view. If you want to go to aps.edu/sapper, and let me start sharing. Okay. So this is the Sapper website, aps.edu/sapper. And we're going to look at the two dashboards that are available. We have the APS dashboard right here under the cyborg brain, APS dashboard, and then we have APS internal visualizations. I understand that most or maybe all of you have credentials, an APS email address, so you'll need that. So we'll start out with the internal visualizations real quick. Just click on it. Let's see if I can move these controls. Okay. So our sort of centerpiece visualization would be my school. Most of this data comes from Synergy, which Jude was talking about, or else it comes from the STARS state reporting system. And so my school has almost every kind of data that you could imagine, which would be enrollment, demographics, attendance, chronic absenteeism, assessments, and discipline information. And so all of that is here at the top, these gray tabs. So the front page here just gives you sort of a broad snapshot of what's going on. We're on Taylor Middle School right now, and we can see how attendance has a tendency to decline over the course of the school year, and how chronic absenteeism, as you would expect, goes up. So all these little spark lines, suspensions, days lost to suspension, which is one that I particularly appreciate. And then if you want to get into some more detail, you can go to enrollment. Now, I need to go back a second. You need to be in the Chrome, to see these visualizations, you need to be in the Chrome browser and logged into the Chrome browser using your APS credentials, APS email address and password. So now we're on enrollment. Just basic counts. And most of these visualizations have the ability to be filtered. You choose your school right here. And you choose your, you can narrow in on a specific demographic. So when we choose race or ethnicity, each little spark line, each little line graph addresses a specific race. And that will be the same across almost every type of visualization, where you filter down to your school and filter to a specific type of demographic, right? So in this case, you can get a lot more detailed. You can look at, we're looking at attendance here. You can look at grade, gender, race, English learner status, special education status. I'm going to go back. So we have some highlighted views at the top here. And then a lot of kind of one-off, more narrow visualizations at the bottom. I like student stability personally. So while I'm waiting for it to load completely, the difference between the internal visualizations, which we were looking at, and the APS dashboard, the information inside of internal visualizations is just a little bit more sensitive. People in the community don't have access to that information, even though it is not student level information. And then the dashboard, the APS dashboard, that would be the link that maybe you'd share to a community member who has some data questions. So when we look at the student stability view here, this is a map of Albuquerque with schools zoned, right? And so we're at the elementary school level, and we can see, the darker colors indicate that there's more stability either, within a school year or across school years of students. Actually, this view needs to be refit. I will republish that after we get done. You can see off to the right that you can narrow in on a specific demographic. We can see overall district-wide females are very slightly more stable within their schools than males. And then when we look at specific schools here, we can hover on them to get a tooltip, which is a sort of a common strategy in our map views. You can see, across year comparisons, you can see that Painted Sky has had a similar stability rate from 2015 to 2019, with something unusual happening in 2017, 2018. And then if you click on, they're often interactive. So if we click on the school, we can see that, let's go over here. We can see, within the genders, we can see the stability rates, and then we can change that item and look at, say, English learners. So within Painted Sky, English learner students are more stable, are more likely to show up the next year than non-English learner students. I'm pretty much out of time, but I'll just go back and look at the APS dashboard. The takeaway in all this is that everything is interactive. You can click and sort of filter by clicking in any of these visualizations. So again, we have the highlighted views at the top. Then we have this sort of tiled dashboard here. This is the view that you would probably share with people, parents, who want to know more about the schools. And so you can click on any one of these tiles you can click on and see a view that offers more information. We will just look at enrollment. Actually, I'll go back here for 1 second. Scroll down. Each row within this tiled dashboard offers a different type of information. So enrollment and demographics, academic performance, parent and student engagement, which includes our attendance values, and then college readiness. Are students going to college, or are they prepared to go to college? So if we're looking at that enrollment and demographic view, this is a breakdown of just a profile of your school in terms of demographics. Anyway, I think that's all I had. I don't know if there's questions.
Irene, you had your hand up?
Hey, one of the questions that I always have trouble finding the data on is, maybe I missed it, but where would we find like the highly mobile students? Like
Yes, so unfortunately, this is all high level, not individualized data, right? I don't know if maybe Brian or Jude would be able to get you specifically.
Yeah, John, I do have some, when you're talking about looking at student mobility. So as John was showing you here on the SAPR sites here, again, we're looking at the aggregate data. So you're not going to get student level details to know exactly which students are the ones that are moving around a lot and how many times. But in VersaFit, we do have that. And I'll share out real quick again to you guys here just to show where that's at. Is that okay if I take permission from you, John, to share over here?
Oh, yes, of course.
All right. Okay, so in VersaFit here, so going back to the system here, after you went from Synergy over to VersaFit, there is an enrollment dashboard. I believe this is the one here. Sorry, trying to figure out which one we had it on here. Maybe the demographics. Yes, so it's demographics here actually. So let me remove my filters here to kind of give us a big broad look across the district here. But we do have under the principles section in VersaFit, if you go to the enrollment subject here to the demographics dashboard, there is a metric down here that will show you number of school changes for the current school year. So you can see how many times your kids are moving around here. And of course in VersaFit, you can drill down, you can click on these numbers to find out who are the kids that are moving around. So you can see we've already had actually 9 kids in our district that have had 2 school changes this year already. So if you click on that number there, it'll take you into the student details to figure out who are those kids that have had that, or having some mobility issues maybe already, so you can start working with them. So that is available there. Again, under the VersaFit system, principles section, enrollment subject, and the demographics dashboard. Is there any other questions on anything that anybody saw here today, Synergy, VersaFit, or SAPR sites? If you do have anything that later on that comes to mind or something like that, feel free to reach out to us. Our department, SAPR, has an overall email that we all check, and we handle all the data questions that you guys have. And that is asksapr@aps.edu. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat here too. See, I think I have see one more question maybe.
I have a quick question. Do you by chance, or maybe we could create one, have like a quickie sheet of like report numbers for Synergy that are reports that we would frequently run? Because I'm thinking like, I don't know if this really answers Irene's question, but when we look at data like that, and maybe we can't drill down to the data points to find out the specific child, but if we know like we have a high mobility rate in our school based on looking at the quantitative data, then we could actually go into Synergy and like run a McKinney-Vento report that would show us like the names of those students who are, you know, in the McKinney-Vento program at the very least, and maybe identified as highly mobile kids. So it's one more way of looking, right? But I know there's reports and things that we run pretty frequently, that if we had like a little list, and then people also know, so, you know.
Yeah, because right now I just have a sticky note. Every time I want to run a report, I ask my school clerk and she tells me the report number, and then I just add it to the sticky right over there on my little bulletin board. So
I guess I was trying to be nice too, because I know there's some people that don't have that kind of rapport with their clerks, and that
100%, yes.
Right. So if we just had a cheat sheet, then we didn't have, that's one less barrier, right?
And I wouldn't look like a psychopath with like Post-it notes everywhere. So
Or running
always a
around
plus.
offering everybody chocolate. Like, here's a chocolate. Please print me an attendance report. Like,
Sure. So to answer your question, there is a document that exists like that. I don't know if Jude is still on here or if he knows the exact location, but I have seen it before where they actually have basically a dictionary definitions of these different reports that they have in Synergy. If Jude is not available right now, what I can do is I can find that location for you and I can get that to Lindsay who can distribute that to you guys. But we do have a document that exists that will kind of help you decipher what each different report's going to give you there, because I know that is a common thing. I use that myself as well from time to time because there is a lot of them out there and all the different numbers are hard to remember. So absolutely, I know what you're talking about. So we can definitely get you guys that information.
Brian, I had a quick question. This is Deanna. First of all, thank you so much to you and John and Jude for that excellent presentation. You did a similar presentation like this for us last year, and you gave us your PDF of all the screenshots. Is that still accurate? Is that something that I should share out again to the new coordinators, or do you have a new one?
Yeah, that would still be accurate. There
Okay.
hasn't been any major system changes that would have warrant us having to make a new document or anything like that. So that stuff is still valid. It's out there. All of our, as Jude was showing you guys earlier too, on the APS intranet, there's a section for SIS for a lot of the stuff that he went over. There's also a section for SAPR on there, Strategic Analysis and Program Research. You can go on there and find a lot of user guides for VersaFit that will go over how to, not only the basic system functionality, which I kind of ran through quickly today, also how to create student groups in there to focus on certain kids you want to track from time to time, from year to year. There's also a lot of other stuff on there to show you how to use separate sites as well too. I believe there's some stuff there. So again, APS intranet is the place to go to find more information on what is available out there and how to use those kind of things.
Wonderful, thank you. We will put that on our website in our resources tool. Thank you so much, everyone. Really, thank you so much. And thank you, community school coordinators, for hanging in here for a very long day with a lot of information. We are at the end of our formal presentation piece. We just have a couple of announcements for you and some, let's start with announcements. Jeff.
Yeah, thank y'all. I mentioned earlier that one of the things I focus on is partnership development. And one of the things in that realm is the big table, which me, Daniel, and Yvonne from APS are going to create this. It's a quarterly meeting or get together for partners who are working in community schools to better learn how to work with community schools, what it means to be a partner in a community school, connect each other to connect each other to spur partnerships, as well as connect partners to resources. So the first big table of this year is going to be September 14th. We'll be sending out an email. But if you want more information, you can always feel free to reach out to me in case you're not on our big table email list. But it's gonna be September 14th, 2 to 4 p.m. on Zoom. And this one's gonna be all about the reentry plan and helping folks understand what ABC is, maybe what community schools are. And then also we're gonna do a little bit of a focus group with some partners who have been around for a while to get a better understanding of what they might need in their school. So check it out. Invite any partners that you have working in your school. This, I know just anecdotally, lots of partners have found this really valuable, and there have been connections and collaborations and new partners, like existing partners at one school have stayed at that school, but also provide some services at other schools. So check it out. You're also invited as well as the coordinators.
Great, thank you. Alma, if you want to take a second and talk about the National Community School Coordinator Network.
Yes, thank you, Diana. Hello, everyone. I'm Alma at Hawthorne Elementary School. And I'm not sure, I know some of you are already members of the National Community Schools Coordinator Network. But if you are not, then I encourage you to sign up and be part of it. It's a professional learning community, and there's about 500 community school coordinators across the country. And, you can find resources. It's a great place to learn from each other. There's tools that you can also get from the website, and Diana's showing the page and also on the agenda is the address, the web address, which is coordinators.communityschools.org. There's also webinars, monthly calls, and there's a lot of resources, and it's a good place to network and to learn what's going on across the country. I'm also a member of the core team, which is right now it's 5 of us from across the United States, and we also have monthly meetings, and we plan for these resources that are out there for the rest of the community school coordinators. So, and if you have questions, feel free to email me. I'm alma.arango@aps.edu, just like my name there on the screen.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alma. And she is one of the leadership team and has been for over almost 2 years right now, Alma. Yeah. So we appreciate you serving as part of that leadership team. This is a really excellent, and it's for coordinators only. If you're not a coordinator, you cannot be part of this national network, and there's so many good resources. So yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Alma. And whoops, I don't know what happened to my, oh, there we go. No, yes, Daniel.
Thank you guys for staying with us for 3 hours on this Friday. I know it's a lot of information, but one thing I did want to bring up to kind of close this meeting out was kind of the best time of the year is in September, and that is the Coordinator Appreciation Week. And it's going to be from September 20th to 24th this year. And it's a national thing kind of put on by IEL and the Coalition for Community Schools. But what it is it really gives us in your community a time to publicly celebrate your role and the work that you do. And so look forward to a different kind of activities and encouragement and support from members in the community to kind of just encourage you and uplift you in the work that you do, that it's not unnoticed. People know the kind of work that you're doing, and they celebrate you and they want to encourage you. And so just look forward to that. It's a great time. More details will come as we get closer to that.
Can I just tell a funny anecdote about last year's community school?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so last year we like threw pizza through the window. So yes, Rochelle.
My school principal put up on the school marquee, yay, Rochelle, whatever the hell, whatever. So she put in the, I guess you can time it for like how long it's going to be up on the marquee, flashing by, whatever. And she typed in the wrong year to end it. And so like 3 weeks after this thing being up on the marquee, one of my girlfriends was driving by and she was like, my God, are we still celebrating you? Hell, do I have to buy you another present? So like, it was really darling, but also like, all right, thank you. So.
Every day is Coordinator Appreciation Day. Danette, you want to wrap us up?
Sure. As everyone has already said, thank you so much for sticking with us for a very long day and or a very long morning. I know you have a lot on your plates. So I just want to say thank you and welcome to everyone who is new. Welcome back to everyone who has been here before. And for those of you who started in the middle of a pandemic, welcome to an almost in-person world for a while at least. And I'm going to let Lindsay, so she's got a couple of things that she needs to announce, and I think we're going to transition into something else for the optional for the non-APS coordinators. But Lindsay? Oh, I forgot about the out of school time funding. Sorry, Andy. Both Homework Diner and the out of school time funding are in process with the city of Albuquerque. They had some significant transitions and staff vacancies that have recently been filled, and the contracts are being picked up again. The update I saw this morning on the out of school time funding is that the scope of work and the new contract are sitting with city legal. We are trying to figure out a way to distribute the funds for out of school time that is going to be a little less burdensome on schools, especially given the potential, I don't know, all of the rules around what you can do on a school campus, and it kind of being, at the responsibility of principals to make those determinations. So we need to make our rules as simple as possible because there's already enough on the principal's plate to try and figure out what they're doing. So it'll be forthcoming. That's the most I can tell you because APS is definitely not going to move on anything until those contracts are signed and budget authority has been given to the district. Homework diners in the works with the same situation, not the APS part though, the city and ABC part.
Okay, thank you. I put a couple other announcements in the chat. I welcome you all to do so as well, but we're gonna transition. We're really excited to have Jerry Thorne from the Albuquerque Teachers Federation here, and he and our Fed reps, Andy and Jess, are gonna talk for a minute. And so really exciting that this position is part of the ATF negotiated agreement this year. So you know, this doesn't directly apply specifically if you're not an APS employee, so stay if you want to. But if you want to leave, you're welcome to do that as well. So thank you, Jerry, for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.